gone green, but his mic's muted.
I don't know if I should mute my CC thing or should I mute the stream. I'll mute the CC. No, I'll mute the stream. Oh, that gorgeous face. Ooh.
Thank you, Suli. It's very nice of you to say, right? It's very kind. I'm also on YouTube, but I'm not going to link that for simplicity. I'm a dual streamer. Now's when I take off my push to talk.
Look. There we go.
Yeah, apparently Shabir is actually trying to talk. I don't know what's happening, but it's constantly working.
Well, no, everybody that joins this channel will be muted. When she gets in here, please. I love you guys. You should actually mute yourselves. If you're not, you know, when she gets in here. But she hasn't started yet. So, yeah.
TP, just do an announcement in general as well. Just not with that.
Oh no. How do I get rid of the sound?
Oh, can you post the Twitch if you want to watch? Or like.
Oh god, I gotta turn that off.
Remove.
Okay, I removed my subscribe stuff. So you're not gonna hear it. No donations will be heard. Just a warning to everybody. I can't have that popping up on me while we're trying to debate, right? So it would be really difficult.
Dirty, can you link it?
It's already linked and pinned.
Just turn off those notifications.
Yeah, turn them all off. Thank you, Java Bolt. I appreciate your support. We should do like a before and after poll on who's for the death penalty and who's against it. I think that might be interesting. Someone wants to start a straw poll.
How scary.
Well, even in failure, this will be a success, so...
Good luck, Kobe. I'm ready.
This is gonna be on Google over again.
I'm pro-death penalty.
What are her degrees on again?
Political science. Says in her Twitch description.
I know she's very educated.
She was first honors in economics and political science from the University of London. She's trying to get her master's in the United States. Her goal is to have a PhD, and she speaks 5 languages. So, should be exciting.
This is all a lie.
You think this is all a lie? Is it the, what does that guy say? I can't think of his name. He's like, he calls them the children of the lie. Do you know who I'm talking about? Or no?
I don't.
Oh, shame. Wait, other people are quiet on my stream? Oh, no. Oh, they're mute. Oh, hold on. My desktop was muted. Wait, no. I have to figure this out.
I'm guessing you guys are debating gun control like an American perspective, right?
No, it's the death penalty.
I think it's just
Oh,
in
sorry.
general. Like the
Why did I
concept.
think it was gun control?
Oh, no, because she had a gun control video. I think that's one of her more recent debates that she had.
Can you hear them now, Arcane? Or no? If you're watching.
Do you want one of us to hop on your stream?
Yeah, if you could just try and see if audio levels are good, that'd be nice.
I think we should get Jeff Bezos in.
I'm sure he'd love to be here.
It's like, hey, richest man in the world. You like to come to.
They're just quiet.
Would you like to be a California?
Hold on. I don't know how else to increase. I'll just increase the person I'm debating's volume. That'll be a good idea.
Okay, she's about to go live.
Oh no.
So you guys should meet your mics and whatnot.
I can't. I'm not getting any audio on here.
You're not getting any audio
Oh no, I'm getting audio. It's all good.
from
Sorry,
yourself?
I'm just slow.
Does it sound okay?
It sounds fine. It's just it's a tiny bit quieter than actual Discord.
Okay.
Just a tiny bit.
DB, are you moderate? Who's moderate?
No,
Um,
this isn't a formal debate. Okay, it's like informal.
Oof.
let's see how that goes.
Dungeon, you should have shaved before this, dude.
I did shave. I shaved in this manner, right? So I could have like a little goatee and a mustache. That's the idea.
Why would you do this to yourself intentionally?
Yeah. You know why. It's for you.
One sec.
Can we get a shot of the bed?
No. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, my bed collapsed on me the other day. Kai thinks it's funny. I woke up very afraid.
What were you doing in that bed?
Sleeping? What else do you do in a bed, Eris?
I don't know.
I like to read. Let's see this death penalty poll.
We'll be starting soon, guys.
Dirty, why are you not on politics, you bastard?
I'm on politics. It's right there.
What's your name? Why is your name so crazy? Oh my god.
It's my name upside down. It's okay. Don't worry about
You
it.
make it so complicated.
Dungeon, when you put your bed together, did you follow the Step Brothers guide to bed construction?
I actually just consulted you, right? And that's how you told me to do it. So
Will Ferrell's guide to bunk bed construction?
I've actually never seen Step Brothers, so I have no idea what the reference is.
Oh, that's a great scene.
Let's do a poll on death penalty.
Like a before and after. Yeah.
Hypnotic chair put it in debate discussion. That could be what we use.
Debate discussion.
Yeah. For or against.
Let's pin that. Thanks for doing that, hypnotic chair.
He's a hero, a pillar of the community.
Is she on her way? Or?
Yeah. She's just putting out the social media stuff just for live now.
Nice.
Sounds like some of you have like a hot mic, or is it dirty?
That's me. Sorry. Should I turn it off and go to push to talk? Is that what I should?
No, it should be fine. Oh, dirty.
What?
Your mic's hot. It's like you're on voice activity.
I heard tick tick tap from Durfee over here. If you're looking at the stream, this mug says Dungeon Master Jack, right? Super cringe. Everyone should get this kind of mug.
Post your stream.
It's pinned in debate discussion. Mm-hmm.
Of course you drink orange juice out of a glass tank.
This isn't orange juice. Does that look like orange juice to you, Kai?
It's yellow, right?
It's Mountain Dew. I don't know how you thought that was orange juice. I'm glad that you all are pro-death penalty, right? From the straw poll so far. It's definitely winning in the 4 category from what I'm seeing.
I'm kind of concerned about the populace of CC.
Wait, why?
Has anyone ever told you you're too well spoken for someone who drinks Mountain Dew out of a tank and hasn't?
Okay, she just started her stream.
I'll pour Heineken into it if it'll make you happier.
So again, just
That
like a quick
microphone.
reminder, please, no interrupting. All the Dude, are you prepared to get destroyed in front of everybody?
Yeah.
I want to remind you that she's much smarter than you are.
I'll be happy either way to participate. I'm glad to be here.
You know, I can see like the residue rings on your glass as you've like slowly drunk, but not washed the tank.
Amazing.
I was just watching, okay.
I'm about to pull a Nick Fuentes on this one, boys.
Wait, are you shaving?
Nah, I'm just kind of, yeah. Touching up a little bit.
Looking fresh, my man.
Hey, thanks, thanks, person from Norway.
Hell yeah.
He's actually from Sweden.
Shut up.
I don't believe in Sweden. It's just Scandinavia. They're basically the same country.
I liked you better the first time you spoke.
Please don't say things like that in my chat. That's not okay.
Can you see like Dungeon shaking with excitement? You can see his chair like.
I'm shaking my leg, yeah. I do that a lot when I'm like talking or thinking.
Yeah, yeah.
That or play with my knife.
Um,
This isn't my sharp one. Like, look, if I scrape it across my hand like I just did, nothing's
Yeah.
gonna happen.
You should get a Leatherman. They're fun. They're more fun to play with.
I have another. I can't show this one on stream. I think it's too
watching,
big.
like, a horror film where like the streamer kills themselves. Like on
I can actually just like run this across my neck like I'm just doing right now. It doesn't do anything. Is that against TOS? I have no idea.
I don't know.
Put it away, dude.
I mean, I'm just shaving, right? This is a razor. It's not a knife.
It's making me uncomfortable.
I've actually never seen someone shave with like.
Oh my.
It's giving me strange thoughts. honestly.
No, there's so many screenshots that could really look bad.
Especially if I lose. Like, imagine, right, the memes you can make out of that screenshot. Be great.
That picture of where she is, that's like an insane looking place.
That's Greece.
Isn't that island off of Greece?
Oh,
Yeah,
is that
that's-
Crete?
My
Is it Crete?
Mm-hmm. I don't know.
brother went on his honeymoon.
It's a nice place.
I'm gonna buy a plane
It's
ticket
actually
for a good thing.
If you have latency issues with Twitch, there's also a YouTube stream. If you click the Twitch channel and then click YouTube. I know some people can't stream on or can't handle the streaming on Twitch if you want video, but you should always stay in CC, right? And if you're just an applicant, make an application and join us, right? Because we're a really cool place.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, where did you post the YouTube link? Because I'm getting a little bit.
Should I post the? I'll post the YouTube link. Hold on. I gotta do some things. Durful, you'll be happy to know that I did listen to the song and meditate on it greatly. So.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, you're gonna win, GG.
This is the YouTube link, boys. If you have latency issues.
What was the song?
Philip Glass, The Grid.
Dirty, you really gotta redo your Twitch graphics.
You don't like them? I made them all myself.
What they say.
What do you
I
mean?
Kia's a graphic designer. She can help out.
It says tips, Twitter, the store. Don't look at the store. Don't look at that. I'm serious.
I
Like.
actually did do graphics for you.
Oh, yeah, Kia's a graphic designer.
Yeah, Doobie was telling me about your graphic design. I don't know. No.
Have you
See,
seen?
the important part
Kia's
is when
graphic
you say
design?
something like you're a graphic designer, you're not implying if you're good or bad. Oh shit,
See-
Boxy joined our chat. Been wondering what's going on with her lately.
Wait, like the actual boxing? Like the internet sensation? Oh no.
Maybe. I mean, if they're claiming to be her, they must be.
I'd be really frightened. I don't know what I'd do. If Boxy was here, my one true crush as a child, right?
Why did so many men have a crush on Boxy?
I don't even know who this person is. Let me see.
Fortune and love interest.
We could probably trace it back to a lack of motherhood in the white community, I think.
Her name's Catherine Way.
Wait, did you just dox her?
No, that's this public
No,
knowledge.
she got doxxed.
Oh, she did. Oh, that's...
Oh, okay.
Okay, so the countdown on her stream is starting in 3 minutes.
Amazing. We should try and get that guy on, the dude who was talking to Hassan Destiny. That guy'd be great to get on here.
I love that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Problem is, all the streamers that I know are like gaming streamers.
Gamers.
So, like, I know Shroud. Like, it's like, what could we ask him? Like, how do you work out your forearm for aim?
Could do something on like I don't know, a lot of the like controversy over women streaming on Twitch and clothing that others don't approve of. That'd be an interesting debate to try and host here, I think. We could get someone to challenge their preconceptions on it.
Yeah, it's actually a good idea. I might contact him.
I got Mountain Dew, oh man, so I'll be fine. Do the dew. Mountain Dew. No, I'm not going to bring up the Telltale debate. That's not. I don't see that as becoming academic in any way.
What's the Telltale?
Whether or not those are video games, like the Telltale games. Mm-hmm.
They're video games.
I don't know about that. Are you sure? What is Evangelion?
Oh, no.
I've heard it's stupid. I don't
Yeah,
know. Don't
please
bother.
don't bring that up right now.
Someone said it.
It's ANIME.
Here's my rule of something as a video game. If I can die in it, it's a video game. And from what I remember, I died multiple times in the Telltale games.
So real life is a video game?
Yeah.
Oof.
Well, I mean, can you prove that it's not? Do you have some?
This is why philosophy should be out.
Is anything real, really? Like, I don't know.
No, I'm not saying that you need to die in it for it to be a video game, but that's like an easy check mark for it.
No, the Black Mirror episode is not a video game.
Die in a TV show.
It's an interactive novel or movie.
Seconds.
Five, 4.
I'm not actually introducing you, by the way. You got to be possible.
Okay, I'm Dirty Dungeon. That's it.
But no, you got to be more charming than that. What's wrong?
Okay.
Yeah, your stream's up.
You have to tell us your deepest, darkest secrets.
Let me refresh. I'm not putting on the flag hat yet. I'll put it on later.
DP, apparently some people can't speak in the debate session.
That's weird.
Yeah, don't allow initiates and members.
Oh, that's weird. Oh, I see what happened. I can't fix it now. Yep.
Key is a graphic designer.
Next person says that gets banned. What is that face?
I'm looking at the camera. What do you mean?
She's watching her stream.
Wait, I can't hear her.
Oh, no, her stream's up too.
Can you pin her stream to the debate discussion?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna mute that since I don't think you guys can hear.
She's not coming in here though.
Put your eye tracking on? What is eye tracking? I don't speak languages
Oh,
like
it can
that.
tell where you're looking, so don't put that on.
That would be problematic. It looked like I'm looking not towards her though, because I have my left screen with her stream on it, and then I have my other screens with everything else.
Yeah, I think you have to have the webcam directly on top of.
Yeah, so I'd have to do it on my main screen that I'm looking at for Discord. That doesn't work though. I think someone's listening to Nicki Minaj. If you ever hear that, that's not me.
Are you preemptively saying it would be problematic?
Wait, what?
You're preemptively saying the eye tracking could be problematic, right?
No, I would never make that claim. See, the eye tracking would just lead me to look at her brain, right? That's all. Because that's what I care about. Yeah, brain. I think someone proved that the forehead is probably like the most erogenous zone too, so I don't know. It's up to your interpretation. Yeah.
I don't think that's true.
It could be. Have you read up on it?
That's true.
Exactly.
TV should organize her to be
Dungeon, have you posted all of your... Sorry, Aris, say that again. I spoke over.
I should organize what?
You should organize for her to do like a makeup and hair tutorial.
What?
Just for all the girls on the server.
I'm looking at an empty chair.
Any of the other members.
Yeah, so Dirty, have you made sure like you posted your YouTube so people can come and like subscribe to you, I guess?
I posted it. Did someone pin it? No.
No, you should post it for...
There you go.
I mean, that would have to be her that would do that, right?
Oh, for her? No, I didn't. But that's the YouTube stream if you guys want to pin it.
What you should have done is put in your like stream window like a tag, or like your YouTube channel and stuff like in your stream window. But I don't know how you would do that.
It's fine. Let's look at the straw poll again.
Because then anyone watching her stream, which I'm sure she has a lot of subscribers, would be able to like comment.
Totally.
You missed the opportunity.
Hello. Hey.
Hello. Yeah, we can hear you.
So how are you guys? I don't know how this process works on your Discord. Do you have a
it's pretty
moderator?
simple.
Okay.
No, I figured we'd just kind of let you two go at it. So, Dirty, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, Dirty, this is it Aya or Aya? Never...
Yeah.
Aya, okay. So, Dirty, this is Aya. Aya, this is Dirty. Dirty thinks it's okay to murder.
Okay.
Let you two go ahead.
All right.
So yeah, guys, for everyone who is watching, basically today we're going to debate about death penalty and whether or not capital punishment should be abandoned in the United States. So I guess we're going to be talking about the context of the United States, and maybe we'll mention other countries as well. I don't know. Let's say where this debate goes, and I hope we're gonna stay on the topic and not float around.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Do you want to start, or should I start, or how?
Should we do introductions? You can start if you'd like.
I mean, I'm going to be arguing that capital punishment in the United States should be abandoned because of the fact that I think, one, it's morally wrong. Second, I think that it's extremely expensive, and I'm going to expand on all of these points that I make. I also think that there are instances of wrongful executions, and that basically it is not just, and also that retribution is not always fair. So there are a lot of arguments that I would make, and it's really hard to summarize without expanding further on them.
Sure. Okay. I'm Dirty Dungeon. If you don't know me, I've been here at Colopian Club for a while, and I am going to be arguing for the death penalty in the United States. Now, to be clear, I don't think that many of the executions we do now are necessarily sound. However, getting rid of the death penalty, I think, would be a major mistake, as limiting that option, right, could be very problematic in a variety of situations, from what I've seen. So, my first question to you would be, are you against the death penalty in every situation, right, that could possibly occur?
Yes, I'm against death penalty in every situation because, yes, I'm just against it.
Okay. So you're principally against it?
Yes, I'm principally against it, morally against it, and I simply think that it's ineffective.
Okay. So, if I could pose a hypothetical to you, right, where you would say this person should receive the death penalty, would you then go to saying you have a pragmatic belief in the death penalty?
Can you rephrase the question?
Sure. So basically I'm going to pose some hypotheticals to you in which whether or not you would put this person to death, right, under like capital punishment, right? And I'm going to ask you whether or not you would do it. Is that okay?
I mean, I'm going to be against it in every single situation, but yes.
Okay. So if you have a person on life without parole, right, who is in the prison and kills a corrections officer, right, or an inmate, right, and is evaluated by a psychologist, right, and they see that this person is likely to try this again, no matter what situation you put them in, right, they're going to continue to attempt to do this, right, how do you justify keeping that person alive?
So, there are a lot of problems with your hypothetical situations. Hypothetical situations are hypothetical in their nature, so in real life, hypothetical situations do not necessarily work. Because although I think that this person should be imprisoned, and although I do not justify this person's actions under any circumstances, I also think that in real life we can have the instance of wrongful execution. So despite the fact that, as you mentioned, so for example, we have a psychiatrist or a psychologist and a group of team who actually evaluate this person's mental condition and everything surrounding the murder, innocent execution happens, and it's a fact. It may not happen in your hypothetical situation, but in empirical evidence, we can see that, according, for example, to U.S. Death Penalty Information Center, in fairly recently, like in the late 20th century and beginning of 21st century, there have been at least 40 executions that have been carried in the United States that are considered to be wrongful because of the fact that new evidence has emerged about these people who have been executed to be not guilty. So actually, from 1973, there is an estimated number of around like 342, I think, inmates that could have been potentially wrongfully executed because of the fact that new evidence has emerged.
So that is definitely a pragmatic argument that we can get into later. However, what I'm trying to show you through this hypothetical, right? Calling a hypothetical, right, not realistic or not pertaining to the situation we're in, right, is problematic because I asked you the question if you were principally against the death penalty. So if you're principally against it, right, you'd have to demonstrate that in every situation you would not commit this act, right? So when I'm asking you this hypothetical, you have to, right, I would like you to answer it at the very least, to see if your principle is consistent across all boards.
You're asking me whether or not, so hypothetically, as if without addressing actual evidence and without claiming that it happens in practice. Okay, so I think that retribution is not fair. So actually, Dostoevsky, who is one of my favorite authors, has talked a lot about death penalties, and he has argued that this type of retribution in the case of death penalty is not actually fair, because anticipatory suffering of the criminal, before this type of execution, would probably outweigh the anticipatory suffering of the victim of their crime. And I cannot simply ignore the fact that in empirics, capital punishment is not really used as a retribution for murder or even consistently for a particular kind of murder. So for example, in the United States, a lot of lawyers would agree with me that only a small minority of murderers are actually executed. So because capital punishment is not actually operated redistributively, it is very inappropriate to use it to justify capital punishment. I cannot ignore empirics. You're trying me to imagine those hypothetical situations, but they simply do not really make sense if I ignore the actuality and the consequences of deaths of these people.
A hypothetical isn't trying to demonstrate that this is happening right now. It's trying to demonstrate that the principle is flawed, right? That you shouldn't have this principle because it would be unreasonable to have it, right? And the way I'm trying to demonstrate that, right, through the hypothetical I mentioned, where the person kills a CO, which is a corrections officer, or another inmate, right, and they determine he is likely to do it again, I don't know how you could say this person, right, should stay alive. It's not about retribution for the acts he's committed. It's about the problem he will present in the future, right?
Yes, but what I'm saying is that I simply cannot ignore the fact that in practice we still have people who are mentally troubled or have deficient understanding of the possible consequences of their action to actually commit crimes. So I do not think it's just, because for me, justice is something that's fair, reasonable, and moral. And I personally do not think that there is anything fair or moral about executing innocent people. Nothing fair or moral about costing taxpayers hugely, and there is nothing fair about executing those who mentally troubled or deficient to understand this horrible consequence of their actions. So the simple what's fair is impossible. In this case, undoing crime would be fair. So I do not think that executing people actually makes what happened to the victim fair. So let's imagine the situation. If it was actually fair, you could potentially say, you know what, I'm so sorry that your daughter was murdered, but it's okay because her murderer, Dan, is now executed. But for example, if you imagine the scenario where you let the offender to actually rot in jail, as the saying goes, does actually sometimes yield something close to fair. So life in prison leaves the criminal to dwell about the consequences of their actions for the rest of their life. And I think this punishment is way more severe than actually murdering the person. So it is cruel, but it is kind of like a self-inflicted and deserved cruelty, the cruelty of guilt. So I think that death is much easier, much easier in this scenario.
Wait, death is much easier?
Yeah, it's much easier to actually die rather than to rot in prison for the rest of your life.
So you're arguing...
Prison for 40 years.
So you're... To be clear, you're arguing for retribution.
No. So I think that I want to make a distinction. Thing is, it's not someone inflicting this cruelty on the person. It is a self-inflicted cruelty because the person is living with the guilt.
Yeah, so they're living their entire life in pain, right? So we should do this rather than execute them so that they don't live their entire life in pain. And in the hypothetical I presented, it would lower, right, the chances by 100% of them ever committing an act against another individual again. Which, if I could, I like to present...
If they're in prison, they would also not commit this act against people in the future, right?
No, that's not necessarily the case.
Security and guard.
Yeah, those are innocent people who, right, can be attacked, right? They can be murdered. There's also the risk of other inmates.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that majority of the times prisons are very well guarded, so there's a very low chance of the prisoner actually attacking. So if you're actually just saying that, oh, hypothetically these people can attack someone, but now I can say that, oh, you know what, hypothetically this could be a wrongful execution. So I don't really understand where you're going with this.
Well, if we talk about if a person, right, has attacked a CO or another inmate, those are things that are pretty easy to prove in a maximum security prison, right? But it doesn't really matter for sake of the hypothetical, right? What I'm trying to demonstrate is you shouldn't hold this principle because it is flawed, because you should not hold it in every situation. It's a bad idea, right? I'm trying to demonstrate that to you. So here, I'm going to give you another example that maybe will make this clear for you. So we have things like stoplights, right, to try and prevent the possibility of more car crashes occurring, right? Now, whether or not they work or not, let's assume they work, right? So if stoplights work, then the chances of you getting in a car accident is lower, right? And if we do this for something I've seen you debate, guns, right? If there are less guns, then it follows, right, that there's going to be less shootings. Do you agree?
I mean, I'd not necessarily agree that if there are less guns, there are less shootings, but this is not the point. Whatever.
Okay.
Let's say, for the sake of the argument, whatever. Just make your argument.
Okay, yeah. The argument I'm trying to make here is that if you eliminate the possibility of this person harming a CO or another inmate, right, it could very well, right, be reasonable to execute them, right, for this matter.
So you have a situation where you have basically two options. This person is either going to murder someone or this person is going to die himself. Do you understand your thought experiment correctly?
Yeah, they're going to murder someone. Or they have murdered someone, right? And so they've done it, right? They've killed someone.
No.
Right?
What you're proposing
in prison
right now is different. So if I have a choice of actually murdering someone who is 100% going to murder someone again, then obviously I would be for the murder of the person who wants to murder an innocent person. But this is not how it works in practice. So I cannot really imagine this hypothetical situation because I don't think that in practice capital punishment actually lowers murder rates. anywhere.
Well, whether or not that's the case is disputed, obviously, with the arguments and research done on deterrence. The studies that have been shown, right, that deterrence, like capital punishment, actually work have been disputed very heavily. But that doesn't really apply to what we're talking about right now. We're talking about your principle of saying you're against the death penalty in all situations, right? What I'm trying to show is that I don't think you are against the death penalty in all situations, right?
No, what I'm suggesting is that you cannot possibly talk about the subject of death penalty and use only one particular case. You have to talk about it in general, right? Because in hypothetical situations, for example, if I have a choice of murdering, like a direct choice of murdering a person who is going to 100% kill another person, then yes, I'm going to murder the person who is 100% going to kill this person. But that's not how it works in practice. Prisons are guarded, and in majority of cases, these criminals are not running around murdering people. So I do not really understand how I'm supposed to imagine this happening in a hypothetical situation.
Are you saying this never occurs where an inmate, right, who is convicted of murder has killed a CO or another inmate? Because no,
I'm not saying that.
Well, then the situation does apply to the real world, correct?
No, it does apply to the real world, but what I'm suggesting is that this one particular scenario is not enough to justify the argument. But also, what I'm suggesting is that it's also not just to murder this person, because we do not know if this person is actually going to attack someone.
But they've demonstrated, once again, the hypotheticals laid out, right? They demonstrated, right, by killing the CO or the other inmate that they're willing to do it, and then they were evaluated by a psychologist and found that they are likely to do it again, right?
But in practice, psychologists cannot always actually determine whether or not they're likely to do it again. People can change. So I do not think that and plus in practice, psychiatrists, not even psychologists, psychiatrists have determined sometimes determined that the person is mentally sane, but in reality the person was actually insane and needed medical help. So, for example, had mental retardation or schizophrenia.
Okay,
so
but
psychiatrists in practice are not always correct. So how can I rely on some psychiatrist's conclusion when in practice this has not been some people have been actually murdered because they were actually mentally ill.
So I agree with you that in practice, right, this doesn't always apply. However, the issue with what you're saying is, right, is that we're applying this to a hypothetical that I very clearly laid out, right? And when we look at this hypothetical, it isn't used to say, well, we should generally apply the death penalty as it is right now, right? It's demonstrating that you would advocate for the death penalty in certain situations, right? So you're not principled on it. That's the first thing I need to establish. That's the first thing.
No.
Hold on, please. This is the first thing I need to establish with you so we can get into like the general examples, right? And critique the death penalty together, because I have critiques of it too. I think it should be implemented in different ways, and I think there's a lot of solutions that could help, right, make it more secure and better, right?
Okay, let's talk about hypotheticals that you really want to talk about. But for me, it's really, really hard because you're telling me to imagine a person, a psychiatrist, who is so skilled at his job that never makes a mistake. We're all humans and all of us make mistakes. So this psychiatrist can misdiagnose someone and we could literally sacrifice a person who is mentally ill. In the past, some countries have actually used IQ tests to determine whether or not a person had mental retardation. And actually in 2014 that was abandoned in the United States. But what I'm suggesting is that IQ tests or people's conclusions about mental state of a person are not always accurate in practice. So even in a hypothetical situation, then if it was perfect, you could potentially argue that, oh, if mistakes never happened, then death penalty would be fair. But I do not think that it's fair in the first place, because as I said, that because of the anticipatory suffering of the criminal before execution, it probably outweighs the anticipatory suffering of the victim of their crime. For example, in Japan, people do not even know when they're going to get murdered. In the United States, they wait for 10 years to get murdered, and some people even want to be murdered at the end, and because they just can't live with this anymore. So I do not necessarily. So I think that this anticipatory suffering is worse than the suffering of the victim in majority of the cases, as Dostoevsky has argued. And I do not really believe in this principle of the eye for an eye on the moral level as well. So I genuinely believe in the Scandinavian model of rehabilitation, because I think that prisoners should be rehabilitated, and this is probably the criticism of the US prison system overall, because, for example, I'm going to use Scandinavia as an example. In Scandinavia, they believe in rehabilitation. So what it means is that that basically, like, this is restorative justice in some Scandinavian countries like Norway, which basically aims to repair the harm caused by the crime rather than to punish people. Basically, prisoners are given the opportunity to become valuable citizens, and actually Norway has the lowest rates of recidivism in the world, which is about like 20%. In the United States, about like 77% of prisoners have been rearrested within 5 years of their release. So I think that generally this type of approach, humane approach to prisoners, has actually proven to be more pragmatic.
So there's a couple of issues here. One, rehabilitation and a system that looks to punish, right, rather than rehabilitate, I'd agree with you, is better. However, I'm not talking, right, about this system that is, the goal is to punish someone. I'm talking about if someone is likely, right, to harm someone in the future, I'm trying to do preemptive control over whether or not they are going to hurt that person. So in principle, right, by my principles, if we can determine, like, say someone is 99% certain, right, to hurt someone in the future, right, in this hypothetical I've laid out, I'd say that's a good justification, right, to execute them if they are a citizen, right, and have been charged and convicted on murder. So it's not about retribution.
Hypothetical situations, right? So, for example, some people are born to be psychopaths and they're hypothetically likely to commit crimes, but we still do not. So, although, for example, we have a very particular brain scan of a person who is a psychopath, and psychiatrists can actually tell who's going to grow up to be a psychopath, we still cannot imprison people who have these tendencies because they can actually grow up to be valuable.
I never said that.
To society. What I'm saying is that hypothetical situations, that's not how justice works in the first place. We cannot simply arrest people because of hypothetical situations. We can never.
Who was arguing for arresting? I don't. We're talking about someone in prison.
Yeah, okay, someone in prison, right? We cannot argue that there is a 99 hypothetical chance of someone actually committing this crime again.
If there was, would you execute them?
I don't think there is. So how can I answer the question that
I'm saying if there was. I'm not saying that there is. These are two different statements.
Like, if I knew that 99% of the times, there is 99% of the chance that this person is going to go and kill someone, then yes. But there is no such situation. Okay,
so you're not principally for the death penalty, though, or against it.
No.
Right.
I'm against death penalty. Sorry. I think you're confusing this right now. So you're saying, would I murder someone if I knew that there is a 99% chance of this person killing someone? Then yes, but this is not how death penalty works in practice, and that's not how death penalty is generally. Majority of the times, prisoners are already in prison, they're guarded, and we do not have this hypothetical situation where there is a 99% of the chance that this person is going to commit this crime again.
So this is where I go and say, right, I'm not trying to demonstrate that you're not pragmatically for the death penalty. I'm trying to demonstrate that you're not in principle for the death penalty, right? Because there are situations in which you would violate said principles, which I think is completely reasonable, which is why I think we need to agree on this first, right? To even move forward, that you're not principally against the death penalty. I think that any reasonable person would say there are situations in which a convict who is arrested within their nation, or a person who is arrested within their nation, charged and found guilty of murder, right? And then if they see that there is evidence that this person would be likely to kill someone, right, in the future, I think it's reasonable to say that you would put them to death. I think it is.
No, I'm not.
Principally.
What you're describing is death penalty right now.
How am I not describing that it's capital punishment?
Because you're telling me that if I knew 99% of the times that this person is going to commit this crime again, and I had this person in front of me, and this person is going to kill my kid, or is going to kill me, or is going to kill another innocent person, then that's a different type of situation.
How is that different than putting someone to death?
The thing is, like, you're literally saying that this person might or likely to commit crime. Like, in real life, we do not have this might or likely. The situations, we either have they're committed crime or they haven't committed a crime. They might commit crime, they might not commit crime. This is not how it happens in principle. So I don't know what you're arguing.
So no, your principles, right, are different than what happened. Like, you don't have to have principles, right, and then say, well, my principles 100% of the time would be this. That's an awful idea, I think, right? I think being pragmatic is always something you should do, which is why I'm trying to get you to agree that you would put someone to death under certain a certain set of circumstances, right? Because showing this, right, demonstrates that you're not principally against the death penalty in every situation, which is fine. I think that's great. You don't have to commit to being for the death penalty in our society or any society like it in order to say, I am not principally for it, right? Like, your principles don't have to be, right, what you pragmatically think, right, within our current society.
So, are you literally asking me, would I murder someone who is going to murder another person?
It's killing.
99% of the chance?
So it'd be legal.
Like, yes.
Murder is illegal.
If, for example, if I had a person, like, in this room, and I had my kid right next to me, and this person was with a knife trying to kill my baby, yes, I would kill this baby.
Well, that's not the situation, right? So I described the hypothetical to you. So in this hypothetical we've set up, right? If you'd kill that person, right, then you're not principally against the death penalty, which is completely fine, right? It doesn't undermine your argument in general, like you've said before, right? It only shows that when you said you were principally against the death penalty, right, you're not, which is fine. I don't think anyone should be. I don't think anyone should be principally against a lot of different things, right? Like, if you are principally against guns, right, then there's going to be an issue where you run into, well, what if you needed a gun really, really bad, right, in a certain scenario someone set up, right, for you, or that you found yourself in. It doesn't have, your beliefs do not have to be, well, I would never do such a thing, right? I think it's kind of unreasonable to say that.
Right. So, I'm not really understanding what's your hypothetical situation, though. So you're telling me that someone has committed a crime, and psychiatrist has 99% of the chance of determining that this person is likely to commit this crime again, and hypothetically, would I murder this person?
Yeah.
Like,
no, not murder. It's killing. It's death penalty. Murder's illegal.
Okay. So, inflict death upon the prisoner. Is that the argument that you're the hypothetical situation?
You'd use capital punishment on them.
If there was like 99% of the chance that this person is going to commit this crime again.
Yeah.
Okay, then yes, of course.
Okay, cool. So you're not principally for the death penalty in every situation. I'm glad we could come to that conclusion.
But there's still 1% of the chance that this person has not actually committed the crime, because you said 99% of the chance.
Yeah.
So I would not rely on 99% of the chance, and I still would argue that this person deserves to leave.
Wait, I thought you just said you would do it.
Well, no.
Okay, so
I
you
was
wouldn't do it.
100% sure, sorry, but I wouldn't do it because I'm only 99% sure that this person is likely to commit the crime, but not 100% sure. So I cannot really argue from a hypothetical situation.
So when it comes to the life without parole punishment, right? I have to ask you this question: where when we charge, right, this person with a crime and then convict them of it, right? You said that this is probably worse than death earlier, right? Or is a worse punishment when it comes to getting retribution for a crime, because they have to reflect on what they did, right? Probably in some sort of isolation, generally, for the kind of criminals we're talking about, right? So I need to ask you, if you were 99% certain in that situation, right, that this person, why is that 1% not applicable there, right? That doubt, right, to let them sit there and be tortured. If this operates...
Well, there's chance that new evidence is going to emerge and they're going to be released. So, let's imagine yourself in this situation. So, you're giving me hypothetical situations, so let's say I'm going to give you a hypothetical situation now.
Sure, yeah.
So, if you think, for example, executing criminals is basically worth the small number of innocent executions, I'd like you to consider being in that situation yourself. So, this is actually a moral question. And
I didn't say that, by the way.
okay, so you're basically saying, no, I think sorry.
I've never said it's worth the innocent lives being lost. I never made that statement.
But, okay, let me rephrase if I misunderstood you. So, let's say there is 1% of the chance that that you are innocent, right? So, let's say you were wrongfully accused of a capital crime, found guilty, and punished with death. Basically, you would suffer through a very, very, very long and grueling court process to get there in the first place. You'd hope to hold out that eventually you'll be found innocent, only for your appeals to fail, so you're actually found guilty. You'd sit on death row for years, and I don't know, like in the United States, the average time is 10-13 years. So it is a very cruel psychological torture in the first place, in its very own right. And basically, you are going to be awaiting a cruel fate that you don't deserve, and your mental and physical health will actually deteriorate. There's a chance that you're still innocent. There's like at least 1% chance that you're innocent, right? So basically, you'll die and only be remembered for an awful deed that you actually didn't commit.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to be alive, then you have the chance of proving that you are not guilty.
So in
after your death, it's already.
So this is a hypothetical, right?
Nobody cares. This is a hypothetical. I mean, this is not necessarily hypothetical because that has happened in practice.
Well,
but in your case, yes, this is hypothetical. What would you do in this situation?
Well, I'd obviously be really upset, right? So what I would do in reality, right, is say, yeah, it's really wrong when this occurs. We need to try our best not to let this happen, right? So we need a variety of reforms to the U.S. justice system. It is a horribly broken system, and it has a variety of different issues. But I'm not principally, right, going to say that depending on, like, if there was a 10% chance, right, that innocent people might end up on death row, right, then I'm not going to say if we could find that 5 innocent people were to be saved, right, that I would be against it. Now, I'm never for, right, the punishment, execution, or LWOP, or life without parole, of an innocent person. Although these situations do occur, right, and I think you could agree these situations could also occur in which, right, life without parole may be given to someone who is innocent, and then they die in prison, right, remembered as a criminal, just as the person who was executed. Their time of death was just different. One person had to suffer for many years more, and they knew they were going to die in prison. Life without parole means you'll never leave this building unless someone like blows a hole in the wall, right? So unless
So
you're...
what are you arguing for now? Are you saying that we should just execute murderers because it's going to be better for them?
No, I'm demonstrating that either way, you're looking to a death in prison, right, from both perspectives. So the argument that you're laying out applies in both situations. In one case, right, someone is going to die sooner, that's all.
In the second case, the person has higher chance of actually proving that he was innocent.
Based on what?
Based on the fact that new evidence is going to emerge over time. For example, DNA was not accessible in the past, and with the emergence of DNA, people now can actually determine whether or not someone committed the crime. In the past, this was not the case. So there are new technologies that emerge over time in a person who can be released after 10, 20, 30 years or 40 years. But every life is worthy, and even if it's going to take you 30 years to prove your innocence, it's worth the wait.
But there's a couple of issues. One, you don't know that this person will be alive when that occurs, right? They might just die in prison anyway. Two, you have the issue of it's not even going to be certain whether or not if they were innocent, which we would not know, right? We found them guilty, right? In the case, in almost every one of these cases is closed, right, when they're on life without parole eventually, right? And there's very little chance that they're going to reopen it, right, unless there's some good reason to, right, like an eyewitness account saying the opposite. Like, and people don't always go out and just like, I'd agree that this is a problem, understand, right? The issue is it applies in both situations, and the probability whether or not they will be found innocent in both, I don't think you can prove that is going to be different significantly. I don't know how you could.
I mean, whether you say, like, I don't understand your argument right now.
So how is the probability different?
Kill them quicker. Basically, we should end their suffering quicker.
Well, no, we are very meticulous about how we try to figure out if this person is really truly guilty by giving them many chances to appeal. There is an issue with the prosecution seeking the death penalty right now in the United States that we could fix, possibly by, in certain states where judges aren't elected based on party and funding isn't received, you could have the prosecutor probably be appointed by the Supreme Court in that state, so that wasn't an issue. But we have the issue here where we're convicting someone, right, beyond a reason of a doubt, is what the jurors are told, right?
I mean, you're wrong because there are automatic appeals and a lot of safeguards in place, and it's why it's way more costly to keep someone on death row.
Wait, what did you say? Can you repeat that?
I'm saying that there are automatic appeals and safeguards in place in the justice system.
Yes, and there's more for a person who is on death row, right? They have more chances to plead their case, generally.
But they have a small...
That's why it's more expensive. But how do you know that increases the probability for overall cases? Do you have something providing evidence for that? That they'll be found innocent based on new evidence? Or is it just a guess?
Oh, yeah, of course. There are a lot of cases that actually people have been found innocent based on new evidence. So, for example, actually, U.S. Penalty Information Center has published a list of inmates who were executed, but were actually probably innocent, and probably a lot of them would be actually alive if they were actually witnessing the day when their innocence was proven. I can give you a list if you want.
Are you talking about the study from Stanford Law, miscarriages of justice in potential capital cases?
No, I'm talking about U.S. Death Penalty Information Center.
I think they're basing those numbers because they didn't do the study on their own. The study is miscarriages of justice in potential capital cases. From everything I've researched, that is what everyone points to when they're talking about innocents being executed. And the issue with that is they didn't provide that these people were innocent. They only provided in, I think, half of the number that they said occurred that it was just a mistrial of some kind, right? From what I understand, I have the study here. Hold on. I got to download it first so that I don't dox
No, I don't
myself.
think we're talking about the same study. I also read another study, which is basically like the hypothetical situation, and basically, if you're talking about this one, I don't know, like by Professor Samuel Gross, who, with lawyers and statisticians, has basically counted the number of unjust convictions, and basically their study determined that like basically 4% of all death sentence convicts were actually innocent people. And basically they're suggesting that 4% of those who are on death row now are likely to be innocent in the first place. This is one of the studies, but there are other studies that have been done on this where they actually looked at the amount of the innocent people. And also there are studies which talk about not only the ones who were actually innocent. There are studies which talk about the ones who could possibly be innocent and could prove their innocence if they were alive.
Yeah, so I'm not denying there was...
It's not only one study. So there are a lot of studies on this, not just
Okay.
one. That
Well, the most prominent one, right? And the studies as well that say that they could be innocent, right? That's not proof of anything. That's speculation for the most part, right? And there's a variety of different instances where they don't prove that this person isn't guilty. I'm not denying innocent people don't get executed from time to time, and this is like super problematic. We should do everything in our power to try and prevent that while still upholding capital punishment. You don't have to get rid of capital punishment to try and minimize the amount of people accidentally executed, right? In any kind of justice system, there is wrongful convictions and then punishments, right? When it comes to life in prison, right, there are innocent people on life without parole that are never going to see the light of day. I think you can reasonably say that, right?
Yes, definitely.
How is that more just than executing them?
I'm not saying it's more just. What I'm suggesting is that people who have already been executed, for example, let's say 10 years ago, now would have chance to be alive and to be released because new evidence about their innocence has emerged.
You
So
don't
they're
know
already
that.
dead.
You don't know
I
that.
know that because in 40% of the cases, those people were convicted wrongfully, and this is not a hypothetical situation, that's a fact.
No, in 40% of the cases, even you just cited the study you were talking about, right?
4%
And
of the cases. I looked at the
so
they
hold
looked
on,
at the
hold on.
rate of
Yeah,
wrongful-
they didn't find them innocent. They said there was speculation on they could be innocent for most of those. Now, there are innocent people.
Who are innocent. They're proven to be innocent.
Yes,
And
that
then
was.
they
It's
looked
like
at speculations.
so. I believe like 20 of the number in those studies, right? Because it's all about the same group of people when we're talking about the U.S., right? We're actually innocent. And I agree that's really bad, right? But that's not an argument against the death penalty. That's an argument against wrongfully convicting someone of a crime like this, right? Without further studying their case and making sure that they're innocent.
No, this is argument against death penalty.
No, 'cause
we
this-
have no
we agreed.
way of knowing that the system is going to be 100% right and it's going to be just. That's one.
The same with life without parole. In the same instance, it leads to death.
Sorry, what?
So the same occurs with life without parole, right?
Yeah.
Where they will die in prison, right?
Yes, but my argument is that they do not really have a chance to actually prove that they were innocent because they're people are already dead.
Based on what probability, right, would you find that they're innocent?
4%. There's 4% of the people who since.
Can you cite that specifically, please?
Yeah, of course. It's a study done by Samuel Gross and Barbara O'Brien in 2008. They collected a group of lawyers and collected a group of statisticians who actually looked. I was already talking about the study who actually looked at the number of the people who were convicted and they were not actually guilty in the first place. So, for example, before DNA has been discovered and before police was able to determine if someone was guilty or not, with the usage of DNA, a lot of people have been convicted who could have potentially been alive and who could have been released.
And some of them died in prison, right?
But some of them, some of them died in prison because they were killed.
And some of them died, well, yeah, right? And some of them died in prison from natural... Wait, hold on. Some of them died in prison of natural causes or were murdered because they were in that situation, right? Because they were in prison with other violent people, if they were innocent, right? They could have died. Or they did die, right?
Yes, that's a hypothetical situation, but we don't know if they would die or not.
Are you saying it doesn't occur at all?
No, I'm saying it occurs, but we do not know 100% if they would die or not.
You don't know 100% that this person is going to be found innocent while on death row or while on life parole. That's the point.
But we do not know that this person is going to be found guilty in the first place, so we should give the person time to live.
Wait, there's no 100% that they would be found guilty in the first place?
Yeah.
That's still an issue. That's still an issue for like every person who's in prison, right, and serves out a sentence.
Yes, but what I'm suggesting, I'm not understanding if you're understanding me correctly, but what I'm suggesting is that these people have higher amount of time to prove that they were innocent because they can plead guilty if they're alive. But after they're dead, nobody cares about them because they're dead.
But the study you cited, right, is only saying that these people were executed, right, while questions of their innocence appeared, right, based on some kind of evidence. It doesn't say that they're more likely than the people on life without parole to be found innocent before they die. I don't know where you're getting that number from.
I've never said that. Why are you putting words into my mouth?
Because that's what your argument leans on, because that would be the difference between a person on the death penalty and a person having life without parole. Or just a person who was convicted for a certain number of years and then killed in prison due to being in a circumstance where he was with other violent people.
So, wait a second. I just have a question.
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
Do you think what level for you is acceptable to you in terms of innocent people being killed?
I'd love to make it 0, but that's like wildly unrealistic either way, for the death penalty or for life without parole or for a sentence that is like up to like, let's say 20 years where they get killed because they were in a dangerous place with dangerous people. It could also lead to them living a worse life, right? Even if they get released, if they were innocent, because they could be addicted to drugs after they're in prison, because you're more likely to do drugs, right, in prison.
So should we just plead everyone guilty plead everyone to capital punishment and say that their life would be better dead than their life alive? Is that the argument you're making? Because that's
no.
all prisoners.
What did I say that?
Rape.
That's an insane straw man. You realize that, right? That's an insane straw man. I'm talking about the probability of someone being... We're talking about the probability of someone being innocent. And as far as I'm concerned, there's no numbers that you've differentiated here, right?
What I'm suggesting is that you told me, these people could potentially be murdered in the prison or could be raped, so why should they be alive? We can just kill them and ease their life. So
no, I'm not saying we kill them.
Going to be bad.
I'm not saying we kill them. I'm saying when you criticize it for maybe they could be innocent, this applies to literally any kind of punishment you're going to do. I'm not talking about killing them because it would be a more humane alternative. I'm saying that the other alternatives of them having life without parole or just having like a 20-year sentence where they either get raped, do a variety of drugs, are murdered in prison, right? All lead to similar circumstances and where this person was innocent and drastically punished and sometimes even tortured, right?
But what I'm saying is that it's a fact that this happens, that people are wrongfully imprisoned. Yes, that's true. But if they are wrongfully imprisoned and new evidence has been found, then they can be potentially released. But if they were wrongfully executed, if they have been wrongfully executed, then there is no chance for this person to come back to life.
I don't disagree, but do you have some numbers that the probability of them being found innocent while off death row is higher, right?
Sorry, can you repeat this again?
Do you have some sort of number that demonstrates that the probability of them being found innocent is higher while off death row? Right? Because I don't think you would have that because that's an incredibly difficult thing to prove. And then we have the issue of, do you have...
But aren't we dealing with hypothetical situations that you really like? So I'm just talking about hypothetically. I mean, you started a debate with hypothetical situations.
So, I mean, we can talk about hypotheticals too. In principle, I'd be against an innocent person being in the situation, right?
I mean,
so no, I'm not for it. Wait, how?
Sorry. What I'm saying is that I have not ever said that there is no chance of person being imprisoned wrongfully. There is a chance.
I agree.
But the person can potentially, hypothetically, in theory, have an opportunity to be saved and get released from prison. Because as I said, studies show that wrongful application of capital punishment has been the case in the United States, and those people could have been released right now and could have been with their families today.
So if I saw numbers on that, right, saying that the probability was significantly higher, right, while they were off death row, of being innocent people being found innocent, right, for crimes they didn't commit, I would agree. But as far as I'm concerned, I haven't seen any evidence to provide this. Now, hypothetically, if it was the case, right, that if they weren't on death row, right, they would be saved, of course, I would answer that hypothetical. You wouldn't want the death... Wait, hold on, what?
Are you suggesting that there have been no examples of wrongful executions?
No. I just don't see the probability being higher than the people who were on life without parole or died, or the people who were in prison, which led to them dying of another circumstance, or being raped, or any other aggression taken against them, right? Or making them their circumstances worse than before based on them being wrongfully convicted. The results of these things, in a lot of cases, can lead to death, even just from being in prison.
Okay, so I'm just curious to understand from where you're coming from. So what type of policy would you advocate in this case?
Well, I'd say we should try our best, right? And now there's no easy answer for this, to convict as little innocent people as possible. Again, the biggest issue I see right now from what I've researched is the prosecution and their vapid, irresponsible seeking of the death penalty, because prosecutors, if you know how they're elected in the United States, it's pretty bad, right? How it goes about. So what I'd propose is that if you had a prosecutor, right, elected by a jury or decided upon by a jury, I think that might make the odds a little bit better. Not a jury, sorry. What am I looking for? Judges, the Supreme Court of the state, right? I think that might be better. This also is contingent on those people not being elected on political party. And from a study I actually have, I can post it if you'd like, it shows that their funding also interferes with this. So we need to get funding out of the Supreme Court and also have them elect a prosecutor so that this prosecutor doesn't have a political incentive for seeking the death penalty. There's an issue there. That's one of the reforms I would propose, and I've thought it through kind of a lot, I hope, as you can see.
Okay, so in which type of situation would you like to enforce this type of capital punishment?
Sure, there's a variety of different situations. So I say,
give me a few examples.
So in the example where someone's killed a guard, or another inmate in prison, I think at that point they've been convicted, right? They were sentenced to life without parole, and they've proven themselves to be a danger to the inmates around them, right? And I'd say we should probably get some psychologists to see if there was some reasoning behind it, right? And do an investigation. And if the investigation finds, right, that it wasn't motivated by another individual's actions, aka like an aggravation factor, right? So like aggravated assault, I'd say this person should be put to death because they pose a threat to other people.
To me. So for example, what if this person was convicted wrongfully in the first place, and what if the evidence, for example, in prison is, I don't know, somehow hypothetically wrong? Like there's like 1% at least for it to be wrong. So basically you're trying to tell me that we should hypothetically create legal branch and then imagine some hypothetical situation where hypothetically some psychiatrist is going to be hypothetically right, and
no, I was proposing this for the real world, right? Is what I was saying. But like, if this was the hypothetical, if you're proposing it, and you said that this was the case, that this person was innocent, obviously I wouldn't want them to be executed, but there's no way of knowing that unless you have some sort of precognition on it, right? I think that's the word I'm looking for. So I see an issue there if you don't have the foresight, right, and every piece of evidence you found leads to them being a killer, right? And it's especially easier to prove in prison, right? Then we have a giant, I don't know how you could say that there is a high chance, enough to say to stay their execution, right? That they're innocent. Because it's really easy to prove that they did this in prison, right? Comparative to the outside world, in the example that I provided. So in this situation, I would definitely advocate for capital punishment.
But you still have 1% of the chance that they have not been the ones who initiate the conflict, for example. So would you accept this 1% of chance of him being innocent?
If there's a 1% chance he's innocent, right? I'd say that's reasonable, right? That he's not reasonable enough to say that this person is really probably not innocent, right? So it would be irresponsible of us to continue to endanger the other lives of inmates and COs based on the 1% chance of this person being innocent. So I think he should be put to death.
So we should put a person who is innocent to death because someone found that there's 99% chance that he's a criminal? Because as far as I know, a lot of the times, a lot of mentally ill people have been executed and are executed on a daily basis because they were actually misdiagnosed or because they are actually more likely to give false confessions. Because normally mentally ill people are very vulnerable to police pressure and do not really understand their rights. So, for example, people with mental retardation do not fully understand the consequences of their actions. So I've actually looked up the statistic from NCPADK has actually published a study, and there have been numerous instances of executing mentally ill humans. The justice was using loopholes surrounding the definition of an insane person.
Yeah.
Or using some type of unscientific standards to define some type of intellectual disability. And these mental disorders include some cases of schizophrenia, PTSD, mental retardation, people who are simply unable to understand consequences of their actions. And there have been examples of people who have actually pled guilty because of the fact that they were simply pressured and they were mentally ill, as I said. So there is not 100% chance, and even 99% of the chance of this person actually being guilty. There is like higher percent of chance, but not even 99% certainty.
So
at least like 96%, I would say.
So the issue here, there's a couple of things, right? One, I agree we should try our best to protect the mentally ill people from unjust punishment, right? And try to help them, right? And cure them. The next thing that we need to address is, again, the issue that this person, right, could also die in prison, right, because they were put there, right, either of old age, right, which means the same result, they died in prison as the death penalty, or they could be killed by another inmate, raped, any variety of different atrocities could happen to this person because of the situation we put them in, right? So if this, right, is a problem, then it's a problem pertaining to any kind of prison or punishment, right? So if you don't accept it, right, in the death penalty, then I don't see how you can accept it anywhere else.
Well, I think that you're kind of presenting a very, very wrongful dichotomy here. So you basically been suggesting that that there are two choices of the person, for the person to die or the person to stay in prison. But I do not think that life in prison necessarily means that you, as a convicted criminal, are going to experience risk from other inmates. I'm not saying this doesn't happen. This happens constantly. But I'm saying that there is no 100% of the chance that it actually happens. And basically then the question would be not to actually murder these people, but to run prisons properly and to, for example, eliminate corruption from prisons, where a lot of prisoners actually bribe personnel of the prison. There have been instances of this. So then you would be advocating for prison reform, not necessarily for murder. So yeah, I don't understand this argument that you.
Well, no, I'm arguing for prison reform and reform to the death penalty. I'm not arguing that the death penalty shouldn't occur.
But if prison is reformed, then we would not have cases of inmates raping each other.
Okay, so there is no perfect reform, just like there is no perfect way for us to find innocence right now. Like you've agreed prior,
I'm
right?
sure that in Scandinavian countries they have achieved very good system, prison system, in general, and there are very low levels of rape or murder in prisons.
So it's still, if they were innocent in that case, right, and they died of old age, you'd have the issue where they died in prison because of wrongful conviction. It stands both cases.
You still have this issue, yes, 100%. You still have that issue.
Yeah, so the issue exists still in both systems.
Well,
so
no, it doesn't, because you still have a chance of the person actually convincing the jury that the person is innocent, or proving of new evidence emerging, basically. So you're not convincing an innocent person, in a sense.
Can you repeat that? I didn't get that.
What I'm saying is that the person gets to leave, which means that the person has more time to prove that he is not guilty.
The person gets to leave, but you don't know that it's more probable, right, that they'll be proven not guilty. They may have more time, but there's nothing suggesting, from what I've read and what you presented, that they will have a higher chance of being found not guilty because of this time period.
There is, because there have been, as I said, there have been instances of people getting punished with capital punishment. But can I finish? So as I said before, DNA, people didn't know about the existence of such thing as DNA, that you can determine it. So people were convicted wrongfully. So with the development of new technologies, there is a higher chance of you actually determining whether or not the person has committed the crime or not. So this has been the case with DNA. Because DNA didn't exist, a lot of people were convicted wrongfully. So there is high chance that in 20 years, there will be a new way of finding evidence, which means that new evidence can be constantly found. This has been the case with DNA. So this is already a statistic, because this has already been the case.
No, so saying that there are historical examples, right, of people being found innocent once technology improves doesn't show that the probability of them surviving in prison, right, to a certain age, right, where this happens, one, is going to occur, or that something won't happen to them in said prison, right, before this is going to occur. So in both, right, there's a risk that someone is going to unjustly die in prison, right? So my issue isn't that the technology could improve. And secondly, right, you don't have any actual numbers on whether this is more probable because you cannot predict future technology.
Yeah, of course, but what I'm suggesting is that there is a high chance of new evidence emerging.
Based on what numbers?
So basically what happens is that after an inmate dies, nobody's dealing with the case anymore because this person doesn't exist. Whereas, if you live, for example, in prison for 40 years, you have the chance of going back to your case, right?
But you don't know that it's more probable, right, that they'll live to that time. And for a variety of different older inmates, right, this doesn't apply at all. And that doesn't even matter because there's also the violence that occurs in prisons, and you have no actual numbers to predict whether this probability is higher or not, right? Or do you?
I mean, of course not, but I mean, think about this logically. There is no scientific way of determining whether or not what's the correlation between people who have died in prison unlawfully and have been. Yes, of course, this happens. I'm not arguing against that. What I'm suggesting is that, let's say you were convicted for a murder of a girl and for the rape of the girl. Well, sounds like a serious crime, right? You raped her, you
sure,
her, and you are on the death row for 13 years, and then you die. But evidence has emerged that you were actually innocent.
Yeah, that would really suck.
20 years, you could be potentially released from prison.
But
because there's evidence found. So, but in this scenario, you do not really have the opportunity to leave the prison in the first place. And there is one question that I really, really wanted to ask you, but I didn't get a chance. I would like you to expand on your argument that argument to people that aren't on trial or arrested with a similar red flag. Would you expand your... Sorry, I didn't phrase my question correctly. Let me rephrase it. Let me translate from my language to English. Basically, would you expand your argument to people that aren't on trial or arrested with similar red flags, for example, environmental or other similarities?
What? I don't... Can you rephrase that, please?
So, would you expand your argument to people that aren't on trial or arrested with similar red flags? For example, environmental or other similarities.
Would I put them to death without a proper trial? Is that what you're asking?
That's not what I'm asking. No.
Okay. So would I expand this when you say expand the death penalty to who aren't on trial, but their environmental factors lead us to believe that they may commit murder? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. So, for example, other situations, would you expand this argument?
I don't know. I wouldn't put them to death. I think that might be justification for possibly imprisoning them if you could provide actual, solid evidence for the probability of them killing someone being high enough, right? So let's say they had an 80%, like if we could determine there was an 80% chance someone was going to kill someone tomorrow, I think you could justify putting them in prison for a time until that chance goes down if you could determine it. I think that might be reasonable.
Okay. That's all I wanted to know.
Okay, cool.
Curious about your opinion. Anyway, so what I think you haven't also addressed is basically some type of prosecutorial misconduct. So sometimes they hide the evidence from the jury. So
yeah,
happens
that's wrong.
In practice. So that's wrong.
Yeah, the prosecution, I already demonstrated, the prosecution has a inert bias to try and appease the people and get people convicted under death row because of how they're elected. So my solution, right, was to have judges, right, that are elected bipartisanly without funding given to their campaigns determine a prosecutor. So that he's not held to the whims of the people, because that is a key flaw of democratic systems.
There's no chance that this person is going to convict someone wrongfully.
But the motivation to do so isn't in the system I just said, right? Unless you can somehow demonstrate that. Now, it doesn't have to be solid 100% evidence, but if you could show me a situation and where this person, right, would want to find someone guilty and then sentence them to the death penalty for some sort of bias to appease a group of people, even the judges that appointed them, I'd like to know. However, even then, right, if we're looking to the Supreme Court of the state for these kinds of things, they tend to have pretty solid arguments for a lot of what they deliberate on. Instead, in our current system, prosecution is left to the whims of the people in almost every case, right? So if the people want this person executed, the prosecution will seek it. It is a key flaw of the system we have right now. And so I give you a solution to it right here. And that's what I'm trying to say, that this would solve the problem you're bringing up, right?
I do not think that this would solve problem in 100% of the cases. And thing is, however, is that you're basically I still can't understand what are you proposing. So you're saying that because I'm sorry if I'm strawmanning you right now, but can you expand on this again, because I'm still thinking about your proposition.
I could explain it.
I'm just gonna strawman you, maybe, I don't know. But you're basically saying that because of the fact that people may get abused in the prison, and because of the fact that they're still gonna die in the prison eventually if they're wrongfully wrongfully pled guilty, we should just kill them?
No, I'm saying it's a key issue with the system. So the solution would be trying to have less innocent people found guilty of these crimes, right? The argument you're presenting, I don't think has any criticism on capital punishment itself. I think the only criticism you're presenting is for the criminal justice system convicting innocent people.
No, because of the fact that so let's say if we live in this hypothetical world where there is 100% way of knowing who is a murderer and who is going to commit murders again. So let's say let's use your argument. There is 100% of I have a person, and let's say I'm a psychiatrist, and there is a way, some magical way of me determining that this person is going to commit the crime, is going to kill me or someone else, is going to kill the prison guard when he's going to leave this room, and there's 100% chance of this. Should I kill him? Yes.
There's a
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I agree with you. We should kill this person because there is 100% of the chance that this person is going to kill someone who's innocent. So let's get rid of this person. I'm not arguing against that.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is that we cannot really differentiate empirical evidence and non-hypothetical situations. So in reality, we do not have this type of case where we are 100% sure that someone is 100% guilty. We can have speculations. We can say there's 99% of the chance or 96% of the chance, but we still have this margin of error. And because of this fact that we live in the world where we are flawed and where psychiatrists are not always correct, and where we have prosecutors who are hiding evidence and a lot of different instances of people being wrongfully committed to death, we cannot really argue for death penalty. But if your argument is that we have 100% some magician, I don't know, in a hypothetical situation, we have psychiatrist who's so capable that she can determine whether or not this person is going to kill another person in 5 minutes, yes, but this is not how reality works.
So I'm again going to say this, but then I'm going to make a point that a lot of people aren't going to like. So first, I'm going to say that once again, this applies to any kind of punishment that you're going to impose on a person who's convicted. So this goes across the board in their chances of dying in prison, right? We don't know those numbers of whether or not it's going to be more if they're innocent on death row or more if they're innocent for life in prison, or if they're just going to be murdered by someone in prison while serving a lesser sentence than life in prison. The next thing I'm going to say is I think a solution to the hiding evidence thing is very clear to me. Public servants are given far too much anonymity, right? So if we were to have body cameras on them 24/7 and they could never turn off the audio, right? I think it could be said that they would never be able to hide evidence, right? Now this might be expensive, but as far as when it comes to criminal justice, right, and finding out whether or not someone is guilty of a crime or not, I think we should hold the prosecution to a higher standard than anyone else. So I think 24-hour surveillance on this person, right, to ensure that they're not hiding such evidence would be important. And I think it would be a solution to that problem at the very least. Do you agree?
I mean, putting cameras on inmates and...
Not inmates. Well, that might be helpful too. Yeah, that would work as well.
Okay.
But I was talking about the prosecution because you mentioned them hiding evidence. If they weren't able to hide evidence or their chances were reduced.
We're putting cameras on prosecutors?
Yeah, why not?
We're following them to toilets and we're watching them pee?
I mean, obviously it wouldn't be like a live stream, right? You'd have all these recordings archived, and it's not available to every single person.
I'm not even guilty, and there is some dude called Jack watching me jerk off.
Yeah, you're a public servant. I don't think it should be made available to everyone, right? It should obviously be held behind the tightest security we can possibly find. But if you do this right, I don't know how you could say they could ever hide evidence again. And I think the suggestion you just made about prisoners is great. We should put body cameras on them as well. Because criminal justice is very important in determining who is innocent and who is not, right? This could be a nice...
100%. Put body cameras on prisoners. That would be, I guess, great. Then they wouldn't go around to rape each other. But first of all, how are you going to put body cameras on them? Because they can just rip them off. Are you going to inject them into their skin, or can't they just put hand on the body camera? Wouldn't you just have cameras in prisons? And there are already. I'm not sure which argument are you making right now. And
we don't have body
cameras. This is. I genuinely don't understand. You're telling me that we should put cameras on prosecutors, yeah. prosecutors, we should put cameras also on judges, so we know like they don't take bribes.
Yeah, they're public servants. Why not?
So should we just put cameras on all public servants and?
Yes. That's why I said a lot of people aren't going to like this. They don't like the liberties of these people being violated, but they sign up for a job in serving the people. And if you're not willing for 100% transparency, now there is going to be the issue with like the military and the president, right? So we obviously can't have certain public servants do this. Why would it be a joke?
Secondly, because having a body camera for a jury or a prosecutor who is not even guilty and who's getting watched by some guys in the truck when he's having sex with his wife. I have never even heard about someone making this argument.
Yeah, no one's made it, but it's a really good idea because it would make sure that there is no misconduct during criminal trials. And it holds them very accountable.
I mean, even if hypothetically, let's say we put cameras on their foreheads or their, I don't know, somewhere,
yeah,
you can literally just close the camera. Like, it's not so hard to fake something, right? It's not hard at all.
Yeah, if they, I mean,
like, when you need it, you're going to come up with a new way of hiding something, right? I mean, you can literally just rip off the camera or close the camera and say, like, it was your clothes or your wife was shouting and you felt ashamed of the Jack who was watching this scenario, so you're just, like, putting your hand on the camera. Like, I don't even know, but it's not really hard to actually hide the fact that you are engaged in something that's corrupt by its nature.
So,
even if you have camera on your forehead.
So the thing is, right, one, there's a variety of different ways you go about this. You can make it illegal to interrupt the surveillance that is being done. And two, right, even if they do this, like, it still decreases the probability that they're able to do these things, right? Or do you disagree with that? Because, I mean, I obviously don't have numbers on it, but I think we would both agree that if they're under 24-hour surveillance, it's going to be at least more difficult in some measure for them to do this, right?
I mean, so first of all, let's say, it's really, really expensive to enforce death penalty. And if we're going, so first of all, it's just physically not feasible to actually put cameras on every public service, person who is in public service, right? Like juries, prosecutors, janitors, prisoners, everyone. Like, this is just economically not feasible, and it's not feasible pragmatically, because people are simply not going to agree with this. You're right when you said that people are going to be like, what the fuck? Because this argument made me what the fuck? And I'm pretty sure that prosecutors and people, majority of the population of the United States, and I'm aware that the United States is still a democratic country, so I'm pretty sure that majority of the population would actually be against that in the first place. So, yeah, I don't think that it's
an argument from appeal.
But even if it's not, even if let's say it happens, right? Like, people agree. Like, let's say, okay, Jack, put this camera on me and watch me have sex with my wife. Even if they agree to this, which I don't think is going to happen, but even if they do, it's going to be so expensive that you can just tighter security in prisons.
So why do we put body cameras on the police officers, or why are we starting to do that?
Well, we do not put body cameras on police officers when they're having sex with their lives and when they're peeing, right?
Yeah, but
body cameras on police officers when they're serving.
Yeah, but when it comes to corruption, right, a way to ensure that they wouldn't, or that would be not as easy to be corrupt, right, would be to do it 24/7. I'm not saying give the public access to their intimate moments. I'm saying have every moment of their life recorded to ensure that they aren't doing something nefarious like receiving a bribe. Why is that ridiculous? I mean, it might be expensive, but we're already trying to do this for other criminal justice entities like the police.
Okay, let's talk about this. So let's say, first of all, you live in the United States. United States is a democratic country, and United States has some type of surveillance on its citizens, right? So that's why, for example, Edward Snowden was like, guys, I know the truth, and here I'm exposing the government, and then he fled the country. So everyone knows that there is some type of surveillance. So, for example, If they want to know what's your browsing history, they're going to know what's your browsing history, even if you're not committed of any murder or anything guilty. So basically, there is some type of surveillance on citizens. Now, imagine, so there's like, government already has a lot of information on you. Imagine now the government has sex tapes of you, and you're a jury or you're a janitor. They can literally blackmail you if they need it, because we do not know that the state is a moral being, right, in the first place. Let's say the government changes, or let's say the type of government changes, then they literally have sex tapes of hundreds of employees who are not even prisoners, but who were civil servants, and they can literally blackmail those people to I don't know, to do something, right?
So if you have it,
sex tapes of them.
if you have it on all civil servants, right, then you're not going to have the issue of some sort of like party conflict. And again, I'm not advocating for these people, especially prosecutors, which is what we should probably like specify here since we're having a capital punishment debate. I don't think we should allow them to be affiliated with a party. I think that's necessarily an issue when they're running on that candidacy. They can vote for whoever they'd like, right, and join a party. However, them running as a candidate in that party is problematic, but I think the elections themselves are also problematic. Can I please go to the bathroom really quick? And
I also need to go to the bathroom.
Okay, let's take a break, at the very least.
Yeah, we'll take a quick break.
Should we do a midsection poll, or should we leave?
Yeah, actually, let's put another poll in the debate discussion chat. I'm gonna pin it. I'll unpin. Oh, no, I'm gonna leave it on. Someone want to make that really quick? Right? Actually, I'll do
What
it.
was the thing that the last poll, the website that the last poll was used?
I'm doing it already.
Are you doing it? Okay.
Oh shit! Hypnotic chair got me. Okay, I'm gonna pin that one. Just vote in this mid debate poll. That's pinned in the discussion chat. I wonder who'll get back first. This is weird. I'm actually like watching the stream. I'm gonna make a bet. I think Dirty's gonna get back first. He like ran off pretty quick.
Men always get back.
That's true.
I'm
We'll
not
waste
gonna
less
say who,
time.
but I had like a strong opinion at the beginning of the debate, but now I'm not sure. Like I think it could be very, very equal at this point.
I mean, I think we can all agree Dirty's getting destroyed in every way.
Hello.
Hello. He's not back just yet.
I just imagined that I was being surveyed while I was peeing.
Actually, we put another poll in the discussion chat for people to. We had one like pre-debate. This is like the mid-debate one, I guess, and then we'll do one. I'm sure who got you back shortly. So I was actually wondering, do you want a moderator during the debate? I feel like you two. I don't know. I think in your other debates you've had like just you and the other person kind of like naturally going back and forth or whatever. Is that better? Do you want a moderator?
Do I want a moderator for what?
For the debate.
Oh, I mean, no, I don't really need to ban anyone. Everyone's muted, right?
Yeah, no, I meant, just to make sure nobody's talking over each other. But I figured you're used to just having like a one-on-one kind of conversation.
No, it's fine. I mean, I trust you to moderate. So. I don't even look at your chat. I look at my own chat and people what they're saying to me. But.
Okay, cool. He's back and he's got a cat.
I have Floki to be specific.
Loki. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like you get back to it.
Sure. I don't know where we left off, but yeah. So I think, and I have an issue with, that a lot of the arguments against capital punishment seem to be arguments that could apply to a variety of different places within the justice system. And I think there is a great argument for reforms in the justice system, right? However, I don't think these issues stem from capital punishment. We're talking about corruption and other things, right? So if you were to argue for like a stay of executions until we had reforms, I wouldn't be necessarily against that. I wouldn't say unilaterally apply it. So for instances, like the hypothetical I proposed, right? I think it'd be...
You proposed a hypothetical reform where like we put...
Well, not hypothetical reforms. That's what I'd actually propose.
Sorry. Yeah. Actually, like proposed reforms where you put cameras on every single civil servant, which I think I counter-argued, and I don't think it's a feasible solution in the first place. So what are other reforms that you're proposing? Because yes, I understand that the system is flawed, but I'm just not convinced. How can we make this system so non-flawed that we can actually justify capital punishment?
Well, yeah, this goes off of like criminal justice a little bit, but in the United States, people of color and a variety of other minorities are disadvantaged by the current system we're in, which lead them, especially African Americans, to commit more crime due to these disadvantages, which leads to more black people ending up in prison and eventually being executed. We have to try and solve these problems as well, right? Because they're systemic.
100%.
Yeah. So I think we could both agree on that.
Yeah, of course.
There's a variety of other issues with the criminal justice system in the United States. Like we punish, right, for punishment rather than trying to reform people. But there is a small percentage of people, right, who you could argue, right, should be put to death, right, for some of their actions, not to punish them, right, but there are a variety of other reasons, like the hypothetical I proposed. If that situation were to occur, let's say you didn't have a 100% chance, right, and they killed someone while living a life in prison sentence, right, I don't know what evidence you would accept, what like level of evidence you would accept, right, but if he was tried again and found guilty, I think you can make a reasonable argument that that person should be put to death because they've showed they're going to violate the prison system, right?
Well, no, because there is no 100% of the chance, and plus, I've been talking about this for forever, but I think I haven't made this argument yet, and I'm gonna make it right now.
Sure.
So, to give you a sense of burden of capital punishment, I don't think that I've actually talked about economics of capital punishment in the first place. So,
okay.
Let's talk about it right now, because you're telling me that this person is likely to commit murder. So let's say that there is like 100% of the chance that this person has committed certain type of rape. We do not have 100% of the chance of the possibility that this person is going to commit this crime again in prison or murder some janitor. We just know that this person has 100% committed the crime, right? And there's like there are no cases nearly where we 100% know, but there are cases where we know like
without a shadow of a doubt.
Without a shadow of a serious doubt.
Yeah.
So let's say we have this type of situation. So to give you a sense of a burden of capital punishment, so over the past 35 years, the state of California, for example, has spent roughly $4 billion to execute just 13 individuals. So it has been actually estimated that $4 billion is enough to hire 80,000 police officers who would be expected to prevent 466 murderers. And 80,000 officers prevents more death than any other type of deterrent effect of capital punishment.
Wait, can you repeat that? 80,000 officers provide more of a deterrent? I don't disagree with that. That's not an argument against capital punishment being a deterrent. It's saying there are other factors that could also act as a deterrent.
No, what I'm suggesting is that it's simply so costly that it's not worth it.
Yeah, and so it's not only just a deterrent though, right? It's to prevent these people from ever getting in the situation of them killing again. From what I'm trying to argue for, right? And it could be said it's a deterrent as well, But when it comes to cost, the reason these things cost so much, right? And if you look at the numbers for just regular life without parole, like prisoners, right, it's still extremely high. So when we look at these two numbers, right, and we look that capital punishment, I think is couple hundred thousand more overall. I'll be generous and say it's even 300,000 more, right? I don't see this, again, being necessarily an issue, considering we're talking about life and death. In both instances, I think exuberant costs are going to be there no matter what. And I don't have an issue with that for criminal justice.
2 million more in North Carolina. So
wait, no, I thought
100,000 more.
So that's not overall though, right? So like if you look at the average cost, like let's find this. Hold on, I gotta find.
So here,
so like we need
for this, and they counted this. It's
so we need to determine
cost of penalty killer. For this, so the Urban Institute study of, like I'm reading this right now, of Maryland experience with the death penalty found that a single death penalty trial costs $1.9 million more than a non-death penalty trial. Let me open the source. So I don't know where I should post the source, but I can post it in my own chat and post it in your Discord. I don't know how to
you could send me the message with it, and then post it. I'll post it in debate discussion if you'd like.
I'm just gonna post it in, I don't know where I'm post debate discussion, like here, I think. I don't know, so you can look at it. I'm not looking at Discord.
Wait, where is it?
I just posted it. It's in debate discussion.
Oh god, did I just unmute your stream? Oh no. God damn it. Hold on, I'm having...
No, it's in your Discord. It's in debate discussion. Yeah, I just posted. So it's cost of death penalty.
Okay.
And the conclusion that they came to is that it costs nearly $2 million more per one person. And for $2 million, you could spend taxpayers' money in a way better way than just to kill someone who could be
the committee
for his entire life.
So we find that the total cost of a typical murder case in Maryland are about...
You're lagging.
Hello?
I'm lagging or for me? Or am I lagging?
I think you might be... I can hear you fine. Hold on, I'm reading this, though. Would seek the death penalty, but whether nothing is opposed almost... So $700,000 more in these cases. This isn't overall, though. This is within a certain area, right? Maryland in this one.
Fuck. Internet.
Oh, she can't hear me. Oh no. Okay, I'll just be quiet until she's back. Oh god, her stream went down. Oh no, guys, what are we gonna do?
You can read that study for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I've read the important parts, but I just want to say, guys, in the chat, right? She's a really smart person. She's coming here with some really good arguments, and you should give her credit for coming here. And I think it's been a fun time so far, and I appreciate y'all watching. You should all join Collopian Club if you're an initiate. Throw us an application. I don't know. I know Aya's chat can't hear us, but I wish I could tell them. You guys should go into her.
DM any staff member, guys, if you're confused how to apply or you're nervous about applying or something like that. We try to do events like this quite often, and just on average, we're always into having conversations. Probably a little less heated with a little, just a bit of less people. Sorry, my internet disconnected and my Steam dropped. I'm sure she'll be back.
She's not streaming. I didn't advertise a server on her Twitch, but I have before, I think, in the debate. So I'm a shill for CC, guys. I'm sorry. Can't help it. I got rehabilitated this debate. I'll never be rehabilitated.
No, I've been telling people the dungeon has been cleansed this debate.
Cleansed? I will always be dirty.
We're starting a movement called #CleanDungeon.
I might pull a Nicholas Fuentes here in a second if I keep getting cleaned, guys. I don't know. Getting scared.
You see, Chef Kev knows how to.
What do you do? What do you say? Oh my god. Don't shill for Eris, right? Shill for CC. Come on. Wait, what? Is something bad happening in my personal server? Oh no. I'm scared. I don't see anything going on. Oh no.
Getting destroyed with facts and logic. I agree.
Yeah. Facts are hard, man. Hard to keep up with.
Where is she from? Like, I know she's American now, but originally.
No, she's in Georgia. I think.
And she studied in the UK.
Because her accent's
Georgia,
very
like
subtle.
the country Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Not the better Georgia, the shitty Georgia.
The better George. Have you seen their murder rate, man? I don't know. It's pretty bad. They're right next to Louisiana, too, kind of. Like, they're close enough to where it's spilling over into them.
Okay.
I agree Americans are where we're looking to.
Did that ever come from the American George? Besides that song?
We don't need the opinions of Snow Mexicans.
So, I've been, like, messing with a knife this entire debate, and I think I, like, got rid of the, like, lubricant or oil that was on it, because it's, like, creaking super hard now, and it's really hard to move. I think I ruined it by, like, holstering it in and out.
So guys, the debate isn't over. We're waiting about 10 minutes for her to come back, so it's kind of like an intermission. If she doesn't come back, we can just include some, we can open it up and turn it into a round, have a discussion with anyone who wants to be involved.
Her internet got the death penalty. Oh no. Hopefully she comes back. A round table would be fun too, though, guys. I'm sure you're all waiting to try and crucify me on things I've said. And I encourage it, right? Come into this VC all the time and challenge me on things. It's really fun.
Viv wants me to unmute him, and that's a hard one.
No, don't do that. Shill for America, it's your chance. Should I put on my freedom hat? Oh, I see it. Hold on. All right. So this hat says freedom here, right? The best thing about this hat, though, is that it has the United States on the bill of it. The entire United States, right? It's very, well, actually, no, Alaska's not there. They don't count. Neither does Hawaii. That's not there either. We just forget about those ones. And the territories, they're not included either. Just don't think about them.
Okay, her stream's back out. I'm sure she'll be on.
I gotta get a drink.
So has the poll changed at all? Still the same.
Let's look. 56 for the death penalty, 44 against. It was pretty even all the way through.
Seems like no one's really divided.
It's like one of those Oxford style debates where they like leave two sides of the room at the end, and like everyone who identified as one way or the other always goes to their side. It's just disappointing results, but still, it's okay. Wait, what?
Dirty. She looks really angry.
I don't mean to make people angry. I just
No, she looks. She's gonna unleash all this rage on you. You're fucked.
I don't know.
Chef, what's your opinion changing?
She definitely doesn't seem like a social justice warrior, my dude. That's not nice to say. I'll say that.
No, I didn't hear any kind of typical SJW arguments.
If anything, I'm an SJW because I think you're racist for your choice of if you choose not to date a black person. So deal with that, boys.
Oh god. That's wise. I actually think that would be a really good next night topic.
I don't want to do that. It's very unpopular, right? Even if it's correct.
Bring Riley J. Dennis.
Ooh. Does she do debates? I've never seen her do one.
I'm guessing not. So. Very like sensitive to criticism.
Should make an argument that the death penalty will make the people who are like persecuting the person feel good, because every time I see someone get banned, right, like, I don't know, get a little rise, right? You'll debate me on whether or not dating a black person is, or not dating a black person is racist, sig natural? Oh no. So you just win though. I can't debate that against you. It doesn't work. I'll concede to you, like, immediately. I'm afraid.
Why?
I don't want to say why.
Are you just afraid of his debating skill?
No. The optics on that are just going to make me look really bad.
Are we... Is it over? Are we, like... Over?
She's on stream, but I don't know if she's in here, is she?
Oh, she disconnected. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Is she done? Oh, she's coming back.
Just that she's a streamer that is known to debate this kind of thing quite often.
Gotta find where that study was. I have like 1,000 different links open on this screen. Oh my god. There's a lot of horrible opinions on the death penalty, though, is what I found while researching this guy, so be careful out there. It's scary. Can anyone repost that study, or not study, the statement from that dude? I think it was to Congress, possibly. Someone could do that. I'd really appreciate it. Because I lost the link in my... Oh, no, never mind. Found it. I'm good. But I appreciate you trying to help, Nurse Rat. You're a gem. A diamond in the sea of diamonds, because CC's great.
Not Nurse Rat. It's a Nurse Rat.
Yeah, Nurse Rat.
Yeah, luckily you have whenever you make a claim, we can just immediately look for any data to back you up. So you're lucky in that sense.
I don't want to do that. I don't like data. Data's boring. I'm gonna be like Suleiman and purely go into theoretical arguments. That's all I'm ever gonna do. Throw in shade.
I love you so much.
Throw in shade.
Yeah, I noticed. It's also a statement to a committee, and I'm not sure which. Oh, it's the Judiciary Committee. It's the Delaware Senate.
Dude, I just want to remind you that you're bringing shame upon your family. We're all very disappointed.
I'm a good Christian, and you know it, so...
So because you've lost this debate, for the rest of the year, you can be cleaned up.
I will leave the server if I am clean dungeon, right? So have fun with that one. I will never be clean. Hold on. Where's Justin? Hold on. I'm moving him. He's getting out of here right now. Get out. I can't drag that far. I don't want to do it. I'm too nice. I'm too forgiving of my opponents, right?
Are you too forgiving or too lazy?
No comment. Demod him for losing the debate. I agree. If I lose this debate, you should demod me.
Dirty, do you know who's in my profile picture?
Is it another... I don't know. That looks like the non-Chad version of Che Guevara.
Okay, that's Johnny McDonald.
Like Ronald?
Do you know who that is?
Ronald McDonald? Yeah, the clown.
I'm so sorry, guys. I was just ranting in my chat for 3 hours about the fact that my internet's constantly getting cut off because I live in a stopped country. But I'm back. Hi.
Hello.
That's okay.
So,
I'm so sorry for this.
So about this thing you linked, it is, so the issue I'm having with it is it's just a statement to the Judiciary Committee of the Delaware Senate claiming that these studies support this evidence, right? But there's no citations to these studies, right? And it's just a statement from John K. Roman.
Okay. So you're saying that the source is not good. I mean, there is another type of evidence I found that I can link you. Like, it's not just the only.
Sure, yeah.
This one, I can post many that I found.
Let's look at this. So I know the cost is greater, by the way.
Yeah. It's just like you're basically looking for a better source.
Yeah.
There has been like this study by the death penalty subcommittee of the Committee of Public Defense of the Washington State Bar, which has made a very similar statement.
I'm like, statements are fine, but I'm looking for data, which I don't know if this provides yet, that you... Report of the Judicial Council Death Penalty Advisory Committee.
There's like this one as well that you can look at.
So like, we know the cost is greater, for sure.
Yeah, basically we know that the cost is greater. Like, there is no even point of arguing against this because of the fact that like majority of scholarly studies agree on the fact that this cost is greater. Not because someone in chat was saying, oh, the cost is not greater because like it costs like what, $100 to kill someone. No, it's not necessarily the cost associated with the medicine itself. It's the cost associated with the
trials, things of that nature.
Trials and a lot of different things.
No.
So, for example, a recent Duke University study that I actually have here, that basically they said that it could save up to $11 million a year by substituting life in prison for the death penalty. So there's just basically
that sounds
consensus on the fact, like, there are different numbers that people use actually and say, like, so some may suggest that it has been let's say 1 million, some suggest that it's 2 million, but the fact is that it's greater and way greater. There's more or less scientific consensus on this.
My initial issue was with the greater disparity in the number you provided earlier. If you're citing the Duke study, I'd like to see it, but I'd agree that number sounds like what I've seen in my research of this subject. Now, what I'd like to propose, right, is if it's not, so obviously if it was like a major issue, right, and it was bankrupting the United States, or if it was an absurd amount of cost comparatively, but if it's $11 million, right, of the United States budget spent trying to determine...
It's in one state in 1 year. 1 year.
One state in 1 year. Okay.
Yeah, one state, 1 year.
So I'm going to have to look over that.
The United States the whole and not like over a certain...
Is it federal or state funds?
It's state funds.
Okay.
Just give me a second. Let me make sure that I remember it correctly because I do not necessarily have it in my mind. Oh, sorry. It's about North Carolina specifically.
Okay.
It's about North Carolina specifically, yes. It's a data analyzed between years of 2005 2006. And basically they tried to analyze the actual cost of pursuing a capital trial to the likely cost of trying in some cases if the death penalty were not an option. So because of the fact that death penalty is not enforced in the same way constantly,
the cost variation is different.
The cost variation is different. So similar cases may have different costs depending on whether or not death penalty is the outcome of it.
Yeah.
And also an interesting argument for this is that the costs are also constantly rising due to a lot of factors. So you said that we need a more thorough process, for example, surveillance, etc. And more technology is used and more experts are actually getting called in to evaluate mental health of the defendant because I guess people are not monsters and they do not want to make mistakes and kill innocent people, right? So more and more people are getting hired and more of the money is used to understand whether or not a person is actually guilty. And more time than ever is actually being spent in court as a result of all of this too. And basically, it costs public defenders like 40% times more than time than it's spent on a life sentence appeal. Not talking about money, I'm talking about time.
So,
and also a lot of pharmaceutical companies. So some of the pharmaceutical companies, like I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this correctly, but Pfizer, as far as I'm aware, Acorn Pharmaceuticals, Par Pharmaceuticals, they're basically now refusing to sell lethal injections.
there's a lot of different arguments here, right? So it's, if I could...
Sorry, let me finish this one, and then you can address all of them. So basically, they're refusing to sell lethal injections, and because they don't want their name to be associated with something like death penalty. So as a result, in exchange for anonymity, the price is raised for it. So the cost of lethal injection is actually radically increased. So my conclusion here is that capital punishment is not just extremely expensive and costs one state 11 million a year and billions overall in the states where it is being enforced, but also that the price of it is constantly increasing. And so capital punishment is a very quickly growing price tag.
So the justice system's price is constantly increasing, right? When we see police officers walking around with body cams, right, we know that this is costing them dramatically more than it would without. So I don't think that improving the justice system, right, and improving the cost of said system is necessarily a bad thing. And hold on, please. So when it comes to the cost of the justice system, unless it is extremely absurd, right, to where the death penalty, right, which is arguably, right, a really important question that we need to answer when it comes to whether or not this person is innocent or guilty, give them enough appeals and time to respect their religious beliefs and other various factors that could affect the execution, right? I think it's important that we spend a lot of money on this, just like we do with prisons, right? The insane cost of the justice system, right, is going to be there, and it's ever increasing, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think it's a good thing, except in the case where you're talking about the lethal injection material. There's a variety of different ways we could get around this. I don't like that the companies are getting bad PR for this stuff, but it's their choice to increase their prices in response to negative PR they may receive. I do want to say that I don't currently like the way we're killing people via lethal injection. I think nitrogen asphyxiation could be a much better alternative from everything I've read on it. It's the way we put animals down, and it's a lot more peaceful, humane, and from everything I've read, more likely to succeed. So, one, we need to switch to a different way of execution, and two, right, we have a variety of different costs, and I don't see them as problematic. Maybe you do, and we can debate whether or not the cost is worth it to ensure that these people are actually guilty, right? But I think increasing the cost of the criminal justice system cannot be said to be wrong.
Okay, so I think why I was interfering with your speech is that I think that you were actually strawmanning me here, because what I suggested is not that the expenses should be increased, because if the death penalty is an inevitable outcome, then yes, you should put all of your resources into finding who is innocent and who is not, because it's really important to determine who is guilty and who is not. So the fact that the costs associated with it in this scenario are not necessarily a bad thing. However, what I'm suggesting is that if the resources were distributed differently, so as I mentioned earlier, California spent roughly $4 billion to execute only 13 individuals.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, this would be enough money to hire new 80,000 police officers who could prevent more deaths than any deterrent effect of capital punishment. So, what I'm saying is that resources could be redistributed in a better way, and this person could simply rot in jail.
Let's pose this question, right? Where, let's say one of these individuals, right, while he was in prison, committed a murder, right?
Okay.
So, the way I see it, right, the death penalty is a means to stop individuals, right? And now, I'm going to say right now that the way we execute people right now is not optimal, right? In the sense that we're executing, from what I consider, far too many people, right? I still think the death penalty should be on the table. However, the cost is partially due to that we're executing a lot of people we probably shouldn't be executing. They're not what I describe as a person who could be considered a repeat offender. Generally, from what I've seen, a lot of it has to do with politics. So, of course, when it's ingrained in our political system, right, that these people are going to be put to death, which is like extremely problematic, right? It's going to lead to more people being executed, which is going to increase the cost. What I'm trying to propose when I say I want the death penalty is to limit some of the lives lost in prison or by escape attempts or to correctional officers, right? So when we see these things occurring, right, I agree that the cost is probably too high right now because we're trying to kill too many people.
I don't understand how you're trying to prevent it. You don't not know if it's going to happen or not. So how exactly are you preventing? You're posing a hypothetical situation where a person is hypothetically likely to commit a murder. So I don't understand how you're preventing, because we do not know 100% if the person is going to kill someone in a prison.
I agree. The thing is, you're trying to determine that, right? And if psychologists, right, suggest that this person may do it again, right, I think, like, if you get a board of psychologists together, right, and you have them examine this individual, and they were to come together and make a consensus that this person is likely to try to kill again, I don't see that as a problem when it comes to saying we could execute this person. Now, when it comes to the general populace of prisons, right, I don't think this is applicable to everyone.
So I have two comments to make.
Yeah.
I was actually writing down your arguments.
Sure.
To address them. So my first question to you would be, so you're basically telling me that, so first of all, those are not psychologists who are dealing with these people in the majority of the cases. Those are psychiatrists who are actually
psychiatrists.
Psychologists are not doctors. They're social scientists. So even if we have psychiatrists who, like, let's say 5-person board or group or whatever.
Okay.
They still are capable of making a mistake, because in psychiatry, not everything can be determined prior.
I agree.
So,
but
there's actually a very interesting study that I have behind me. It's done by. Give me a second. So this is a book written by Christopher Berry, and he spent a lot of time with psychopaths and savages, as he calls them, and a huge part of this book is actually dedicated to psychiatrists who examine people who commit crimes that are animalistic. So a person, when a person who is normal hears about these crimes, he probably will get shocked. So he interviews those people, but he also interviews psychiatrists, and there is no consensus between psychiatrists about whether or not one person is going to commit this crime again, and whether or not this person's brain is different. So there is basically no consensus between psychiatrists. Again, it's not like it's not always a hard science, right? Where you can 100% say if someone is suffering from something or if someone is going to repeat this action, because psychiatrists are not magicians. They're not.
I'm aware. I wasn't saying
they're
that.
Not Jesus.
These are all really bad straw mans, and I'm sorry, but I can't let you say things like that to me.
Sorry. You're saying to me that we can have a board of psychiatrists who are going to determine whether or not a person is going to commit a crime. So how am I supposed to?
So it's obvious It's obviously not 100% certain, but in cases where the individual has murdered in prison, I'd argue they've done enough to make it, right, a convincing argument for why this person is dangerous. And if the psychiatrist, evaluate them, right, and determine that they think he is likely to kill again, these are expert opinions, right, on the human condition, right?
Yeah, but experts can
Then I think, well, we can be wrong in convicting someone to life in prison and then can stay in prison forever. This applies to all of these things, right?
Yes, but new evidence can emerge and we can release this person. Another question that I have towards you. So
wait.
It's back to the economics of it, to the cost of the capital punishment. So it's not that the fact that cost is greater, it's that the money that it costs could be used to prevent more murders if allocated elsewhere. So it's taxpayers' money. It's money of the American people who could use this money elsewhere to prevent those death penalty cases and lower rates of homicide in general, and that are going to generally decrease these instances. So why not reallocate these resources in a different way, and why not spend $3 billion on 13 inmates like they did in California?
Okay, so if you're saying that your argument is that we should allocate more funds, right? So it's not a zero-sum game where we either allocate funds to one or the other. That's not the question of capital punishment, right? Just because this thing is expensive doesn't mean that if the funds weren't going there, they will go to this other policy. If you were to pose a hypothetical in which it was certain that we would prevent more lives being saved by not going to capital punishment, right, and distributing that money, that'd be fine. But in the United States, the system we're talking about, right, that's not how things are allocated, right, generally. Unless you could be 100% certain, right, that these funds were going to that allocation and that it would operate in the way that you're describing, right, I don't see that as a good argument against it. So
okay,
when
let's see that this money is going to get allocated in the way that it's going to prevent those people from committing more murders. So for example, let's say we're going to hire 80,000 police officers. So let's say that one area in California has extremely high rate of homicide, and instead of killing the person who committed the murder, we're just going to let him rot in jail, just let him be there, and hire, let's say, 300 more police officers or 1,000 more police officers to actually observe this area and try to prevent crimes. Who do you think is a more dangerous person in this case? The people who are free and who are likely to commit murder and who are going to get prevented by the high amount of police officers in that area, or the person who is sitting in the jail rotting there and is not likely to get out?
So there's a lot of ways you could distribute money from one program to another and see an effect, right? However, you don't have to pose this question, right, as an argument against funding capital punishment, right? So you could get these funds from a variety of different places to stop the homicides. It's not a question of if we take this money out of capital punishment, right, then we should put it in this, right? That's not an argument against capital punishment if capital punishment is still effective. No, it isn't. Because there's a variety of different, because I could say, well, maybe, right, certain counties who have electricity, right, they don't need it as much. So like, let's say Silicon Valley, right? The same laws and rules apply when it comes to the necessity to provide electricity to those people, even though they're absurdly rich. So if we take away the necessity for them to have electricity by government subsidies, we could put that money towards the increase in police officers to prevent more homicides. There's a variety of different places we could take this money from. We don't have to take it from capital punishment, right? Saying capital punishment costs a lot, I agree, but that doesn't mean that because other programs could benefit from money that you should take it from capital punishment. I don't see that as a good argument, because then I could go and say we could take this from just like almost any program we don't see as valuable, right? And did you see the point?
100%. No, you can. You can say that this program, for example, that the government has implemented does not work, so we have to take money from this program and allocate this to another place because it's taxpayers' money, it's people paying, right? You could build schools with this money, you could educate people, you could protect people. So yes, you do. You want to spend public money in a way that best serves the people, not the way that best serves the inmate in this case. Because I think that death is, in certain cases, a better thing for some people who have committed the homicide. They would prefer death over life in prison.
I care about the rights.
The ones who
actually, there are people who volunteer for the. There are people who volunteer for the death penalty, right? We're aware of this. However, when you say we don't need to value the lives of the inmate, I entirely disagree. If we're going to put this person in our care as a society, right, for an action they've done and say, you are going to be here because we find you are not able to exist with outside of this structure we have provided for you, right, to keep you away from the general populace. These inmates have rights, right, that we need to give to them. And so when you say, well, my programs I'm suggesting are to prevent the rights of other inmates and correctional officers from being infringed upon. Their right to life is more important than the person that is willing to take away from them. So if there's an inmate, most inmates aren't going to murder again, right? But a lot of them get sent to max security. So if they're in max security with these other inmates who are likely to murder again, right? We have an issue where we need to stop this.
You send them to solitary. The people who have committed serious crimes are sent to solitary.
Again, that poses a threat to correctional officers because they still have to interact with them in order to provide them with their basic rights.
I mean, what's the chance of, like, do you have any statistic on what's the hypothetical chance of the officer getting attacked? Because I'm pretty sure that the inmate does not necessarily have weapons. And I know that you can make the argument that he can make weapon out of his shoe or something, but in reality, like, what's the percentage? Like,
well, I'm saying this is a preventative. It's a preventative measure against such a thing.
That's not how justice works in the first place. You do not.
Wait, what?
So what I'm saying is that you do not diagnose someone with something and say, "Oh, this person is hypothetically, like, there is a hypothetical possibility that this person is going to commit crime again, and that's why we should murder this person." If we do not have evidence for this person to do this, we cannot really judge him for this. Does it make sense what I'm saying? Is that you do not hold people accountable for actions they haven't yet committed.
So again, I've talked about them committing this action in prison while they were on a life sentence, right? So if they try to commit murder or commit murder while on a life sentence, right, they are violating, right, the terms of their imprisonment by doing this and committing another crime. So if a person in this instance is doing so, right, I'd say that you can justify having a more extreme form of punishment to prevent them from doing this in the future.
That's not how it works. Just because.
Wait, I know that's not how it works right now. I'm proposing this is how it should work.
Yes, but I mean, it should not work this way. Because
why?
Just because he has attacked one officer, you don't know the circumstances. Maybe this officer was making fun of him. Maybe this officer was trying to rape him. You don't
we talked about this earlier with aggravation factors. We literally had this conversation. I agree it should be judged differently if they're aggravated. I totally agree with you on that. If you can prove they were aggravated to do something, the punishments are always less within the justice system. I wouldn't change that at all.
Okay, so anyway, back to my argument. So you cannot, so even if they were aggravated or not aggravated, you cannot really say that just because this person has attacked an officer once, he's going to attack him again. I mean, yes, there is likelihood that he's going to repeat his action, but there is also likelihood that he's not going to repeat this action. Just because someone committed this crime once or even twice does not mean that this person is going to commit this crime third time, and does not mean that this person deserves to die for the crime that he hasn't yet committed.
So I agree that it isn't 100% certain that they're going to commit this crime again, right? However, I'd say that since they committed the action, right, of violating their imprisonment, we can justify, right, killing them, right, to prevent them from doing such a thing again, because they've shown they're willing and able to violate the terms of their imprisonment. And I'd say execution is a valid form of punishment for such a thing.
I mean, as I said, I do not think that you can necessarily punish people for the crimes they haven't committed yet.
I just said they did commit it. They tried, right?
Oh, they tried. Okay, yet still no. They're just gonna so first of all,
Why?
this is a very weird situation that you're suggesting me, because people who are murderers, who are psychopaths, and who are savages are normally kept in supermax prisons. And I don't know if you've ever been in the supermax prison, but I have actually been in the supermax prison, and it's really fucking hard for an inmate to attack a guard, because they're literally in cages and treated like animals. So first of all, I have an argument that it shouldn't be so. I don't think that people should be treated animals under any circumstances. But in the United States, the supermax people who have been in supermax prison are treated like animals quite oftenly. And the fact is that it's really, really hard for them to attack the guard or escape the prison. It's the ability for them to do it is just so low that it's absurd to talk about it even.
Wait,
it has happened before, but what I'm suggesting is that
so
the current situation, with the amount of guard that prisons has and technology, it's really, really hard for a prisoner to escape or attack a guard. And even if there is a chance, you cannot punish this person for the action he's going to commit.
I'm not saying that. Again, you're not listening to me.
You don't know if he's going to kill someone.
I'm saying if he commits this action, I think a just punishment would be death, right? So if you could even write the law this way, right? You could say, if while a person who has life in prison or has murdered someone, right, is serving their sentence and actively kills another inmate or a guard or attempts to, they are subject to capital punishment. You could write the law this way, right? So even if it's unlikely, right, you could prevent a variety of the different pretty awful death sentences that occur.
But you do not know whether or not it's going to prevent them, because as we know, actually when people are threatened with death, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not going to commit the crime. It's not.
I'm not saying it'll prevent them from doing it. I'm saying it'll prevent them in the sense that they're dead after they get executed, right? But they've shown a willingness to violate the prison system, right? And the reason they're in there is to protect people. And if they are a danger to the people in that prison, right? Unless you're advocating, which you just said you weren't, for some sort of like permanent isolation where they never see the light outside of some sort of solitary confinement room, their food is shoveled in and the pipes take out whatever's in there, right? I don't know how you could say this is not a just punishment, right? Because otherwise they're going to pose a risk to other inmates and prison guards, which I value the lives of.
First of all, they're not going to pose a risk to other inmates because they're in solitary cameras. And secondly, what if this person was basically killing another person in self-defense? So like in very grave circumstances, and a lot of times law is not clear on this, and evidence is often not clear on this. You can literally abuse law because of such.
Yeah, I'm not advocating for abusing the law by executing people who were attacked. Obviously, if that occurs, right, that'd be really problematic, and we should do everything in our power to stop that from occurring. That's why the prison system costs so much, right? Not the prison system, the justice system costs so much, is because we try our best to determine guilt, right? And in prison, right, max security prisons, as you've said, have a variety of cameras, or we could put body cameras on the inmates specifically to increase the chances of us catching what exactly occurred.
So I think that my main issue with your argument is that you're always arguing with hypotheticals, and it's extremely hard.
I'm proposing this situation.
No. So you're proposing the situations, which means that you're arguing with hypotheticals. So what I want to know is that so I want to actually you to pose and.
How else do I advocate for a system? So, like, I'm saying we should do this. I'm saying we ought do this, right, to prisoners who commit a certain action. I'm not giving you a hypothetical. I'm saying we ought do this, right?
Okay. So you're basically saying that in your hypothetical situation, it would be just to murder them. So
it's not a hypothetical.
I want to ask you something. So I want to ask you something. It's hypothetical.
It's not.
Okay, it's not, whatever you're saying, because it is hypothetical, dude. What are you telling me? That how is it not hypothetical? You're telling me, imagine a situation, the prisoner is attacking another person, a guard or another inmate. Would you, in this situation, kill him? I mean, this is a hypothetical situation, isn't it?
If he's attacking another inmate? Like
not
actively?
attacking another inmate, but that's like attacking a janitor, and we know 100% that janitor was not guilty in this case, or that another prisoner was not guilty, because in the majority of the cases we did not know.
Yes, I would execute him in that hypothetical that you propose, but I'm saying in these situations where we don't... Okay, go ahead.
I'm saying that this is a hypothetical situation that you proposed to me, so this is a hypothetical situation. So I'm simply suggesting that you're using hypotheticals to argue, and that's not how the debate normally goes when you talk about death.
So hypotheticals are meant to challenge a principle, and you at the beginning you said you were principled on it, and we got past that and we got onto the pragmatic arguments. And I disagree with a lot of how the... Hold on. No, I'm not. I'm saying we ought to do this in these situations, right? So I'm not saying this hypothetical is like a constant occurrence, but when you say we shouldn't do capital punishment, I'm saying we should rewrite the laws so in instances like this, we do use the capital punishment to punish this in cases where people are assaulting others or killing others in prison, which is designed to protect others from these instances. And I'm not saying, to be very clear, that if these people were aggravated or if they were assaulted, we should execute them. We should do our best to show that they did this without aggravation.
Can you tell me, are you going to oppose all capital punishment until your proposal is implemented?
I already said we should decline the amount of capital punishments occurring. I've said this a variety of times.
The amount, or simply abolish it?
No, we shouldn't abolish it. Well, there's been abolishment, and so, like, if you think about, there's a variety of different ways we write legislation. In the United States, our Constitution had a variety of different stipulations for things that would either be made illegal, right, or legal beyond a certain point of time, like slavery, right? I'm obviously not advocating for slavery. It's just an example of legislation that said something would be made illegal in the future. So you could say, and I would say, it might be fruitful to withhold executions until we get a better system, yeah. However, right, that's not an argument against capital punishment, right? It is I'm not sure if the word is furlough. I don't know if that... It is a stalling of capital punishments until we fix our system. I wouldn't be against that. However, that's not an argument against capital punishment. That's an argument that capital punishment, as it currently stands, needs to be fixed in some manner.
So basically, you're telling me that we should withhold all capital punishment before we have civil servants who have cameras everywhere.
Not necessarily that, but like we should withhold it until we write better legislation so less people are getting executed at the very least.
Legislation.
So the better legislation, the better legislation would be, right, the execution of prisoners who have shown that they are going to violate another prisoner's body, right, physically, right, without aggression in a prison. I think that would be a good start.
Put in salted cameras. Like, they do not really have interaction with everyone else.
So in prison, right, it's not obviously going to be 100% certain that this person is guilty, but that's not the standard I'm holding anyone to in a conviction of a person for a crime. So the court would still operate in a similar fashion. I'd like to change prosecution and sentencing. But when you look at people in these maximum security prisons, you could legislate something, right, that says if they violate the things that I described, right, they could then be executed. And I think that's a fine reason.
Okay, but let's imagine another hypothetical situation then that I don't know. Let's say the person did not actually commit the initial crime and he was pled guilty, but in reality he was innocent, but he decided to attack the janitor because janitor was somehow mistreating him.
Okay. So in court, of course it could be the case. In court, the reason we try someone is to try to determine this. Obviously, there are issues where we can't tell 100% whether or not have they done something, but unless you're suggesting we don't incarcerate people for this, you can't really make that argument against the death penalty in earnesty because, again, people can die in prison, right, for being mistried either way.
I think I already talked about this, and I said that there is a chance of this person to actually get released after even 20 years.
You're not basing that on any numbers.
I mean, there are a lot of instances of people actually getting released after they have been convicted to be innocent. There are cases of people getting murdered, innocent people getting murdered.
Unfortunately, exactly. There's cases of innocent people getting murdered in prisons too and being put in there while they were innocent. There's also cases, right, where people died in prison, right, and we found out they were innocent. This is an issue across the criminal justice system. And this is really where it stands, where I don't understand this criticism of capital punishment, because if the same could occur in any of these situations, then the issue isn't capital punishment, it's that we can't try someone with 100% certainty. But I don't see how you operate operationally, right, we're going to be held to the standard of absolute certainty when it comes to trying and convicting criminals, because then no one, right, because I'm losing my voice, because we don't have 100% certainty of anyone being a criminal, right? It's going to be an issue. Well, it's because this applies to every kind of conviction.
Like, first of all, I don't understand, like, how you're making this argument. First of all, what I don't understand is that how do you not understand the fact that if the person is murdered innocently by the by the, like, janitor or whatever, after 10 years, and in 20 years he is actually found not to be guilty, is the same. It's like, it can happen.
That's an anecdotal example, right? And I agree that if that happens, I agree that that's an... Wait, anecdotal experience are things that happen. But what I'm trying to show, right, is that I agree this is wrong. I agree that this is wrong. Hold on. I agree that this is wrong, right? But it's an issue across the justice system. If you have a solution to 100% try and convict someone, and with absolute certainty, I'd love to hear that idea, but this kind of thing will occur across the entire justice system, and it's going to lead to people dying in prison, which is what executions are.
Did you just call murder of innocent people an anecdotal evidence?
Do you know what anecdotal means?
I do, but I'm just curious if you get it right now.
Yes, that's an anecdotal example. And it doesn't show that that's going to happen across the board.
Okay, so basically you're telling me that just because in, like, let's say 10 years there are 20 instances of innocent people dying, that's basically anecdotal. Would you call it anecdotal evidence if it was your son or your mom or yourself?
It's an appeal of my emotions, one, which is fine if you want to do that. And obviously, I've already stated I don't want this to happen, but I don't know what your solution is to the problem across the entire criminal justice system, because deaths are going to occur of innocent people, right, due to the lack of certainty we have.
I mean, you simply can... no, it's not going to happen. First of all, you can...
What?
You can actually start treating prisons not as places where people get raped, not like it happens in the United States, but basically like they treat it in Scandinavia again, where basically they believe in this type of rehabilitation of the prisoner, so you can actually implement reforms that are going to prevent rape. This type of misery where one janitor is dominating the prisoner and one where...
Do you think that only happens in United States prisons?
I mean, no. I do not think that it happens only in the United States.
I already told you I agree with reforms, right? I believe in...
Can you stop? Can you stop?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, sorry.
It's just... You're strawmanning me. I'm sorry. It's, like, really frustrating.
I don't understand how I'm strawmanning.
Because you said, well, I've already demonstrated to you that I am not for...
In my ear because this is...
I'm sorry, my mic is a Blue Yeti and it's kind of loud. Okay, so what I'm trying to tell you, right, is that when I'm advocating for this, I'm not advocating for prison based on punishment. I'm advocating for prisons based on reform. But if certain actions are taken, right, we have to eliminate the threat to other prisoners, right? And so I think a good way to do that is if someone has shown they are willing to violate the sanctity of another prisoner's life while in prison, or a guard or a janitor or any staff, right? I think that executing them would be a fine way to ensure that someone who is willing to do it won't do it again.
Okay, so can I go back to my argument? Like, are you gonna not interfere with me? So, okay, good. What I was suggesting is that you told me that basically I cannot really argue that prisoners should not face death row because of the fact that they can get raped in prisons, etc., right? So, and they may be non-guilty but still spend their life in prison, right? For this, we would need the change of the system. So, instead of punishing people, which is going to cause more harm, we should have what criminologists call restorative justice, basically rehabilitation. I never said that rape occurs only in the US prisons, because rape occurs in a lot of countries where prison systems is fucked. So, for example, it occurs in Russia. It occurs in countries that have fucked up prison systems, like the United States. I am talking about Scandinavian countries, which have one of the lowest recidivism rates in the world, which is at 20%. I'm not saying that there is this causation argument. I'm saying that there is simply correlation. But this correlation is good enough to at least try different approach to inmates, and rather than to try to make them someone's bitch and for them to have misery, try to incorporate them and try to make them better human beings in some way. And I'm saying this not because I think that a rapist is a good person and deserves a chance. No, I hate rapists and I hate those kind of people, and I think they're scum. But I think that people can change, and this has been the case in Norway, where majority of the times people who are released from prisons, they do not commit the same crime as they do in the United States, where in 77% of the cases, prisoners are rearrested within 5 years of their release. So, when I'm saying that the United States should abolish capital punishment, I'm also arguing that the United States should change their entire prison system. Because for me, it looks like money making rather than any type of justice that they're trying to seek.
So I will stand hand in hand with you outside Capitol Hill and advocate against prisons based on retribution or profit. My issue isn't with prisons trying to reform and rehabilitate prisoners. I love that idea. However, if a prisoner violates, the attempt to reform them by murdering another person in said institution, and shows that they are willing to do so, I think it's reasonable to say at that point, we're not executing them for retribution. We're executing them just like we keep them in prison to protect others, from them.
But it kind of argues against what you're saying. You're telling me that you believe in restorative justice, but you're also telling me that we also should kill inmates. And plus, your argument is kind of destroyed by itself if we go into this argument, because if we have restorative justice, and if we, I'm not American, let's say if United States actually starts looking after its prisons, and if prisons become not places where people have bitches and where they get raped, but as a place where, yes, it's not necessarily pleasurable, but where it's not hell on earth, then people are not necessarily going to get raped in the first place, the ones who are innocent. So you're already advocating for more humane treatment. Secondly, you're not you're not arguing for rehabilitation if you're saying that we should murder them.
So I am arguing for rehabilitation of prisoners who show, and demonstrate they will be rehabilitated without actively trying to harm their fellow inmates or guards, or staff on the prison. So these points do not conflict with each other, because I'm not arguing for a retribution-based execution.
You are arguing.
No, I'm not. That's not retribution. Retribution doesn't mean execution. These are different concepts, So when I'm talking about execution, the reason I want to execute these people is to defend other people's right to their life, because prisoners have a right to their life. COs have a right to their life. Janitors do. So if they've demonstrated that they are not willing to reciprocate the right to life of their other prisoners, in this institution that is put there, for them to not harm others, I think it could be said that we should execute these individuals so that doesn't lead, right, to a system in which this is okay. Because how do you punish the prisoner besides locking them up in a cell eternally? Which I don't think either of us would agree with is a good decision, because that doesn't lead to reformation. I think there is a point at which the levee breaks, and I think this is where it breaks.
So basically, you're still not arguing for rehabilitation, because you're saying that there is certain point where, in certain types of crime, where rehabilitation is not going to help, where we should just murder people.
So I can.
That's not rehabilitation.
So I can argue for rehabilitation for someone, but it doesn't make it right a argument to, what is it? Some sort of like punishment system where we're punishing this person for their action, right, rather than trying to rehabilitate them.
In Scandinavian countries, like for example Breivik, he's not murdered, although he's a mass murderer. He lives in his cell. He eats. He plays video games, as far as I'm concerned, and he's watching TV, and he's doing well for himself. So when we talk about restorative justice in Scandinavian countries, I don't think that you understand the idea of rehabilitation and what restorative justice means in the first place. When we talk about restorative justice, we do not have place of murder in murder is a wrong word to use in this case. The case of punishing an inmate with death. That's first argument. And second question that I wanted to ask you is that I want you to justify expenditures with suboptimal public safety. Because for me, that's suboptimal public safety. Because you're talking about some hypothetical situation of one guy murdering some janitor, which doesn't really happen.
Do you think so?
So, can you tell me how you're going to justify?
If it doesn't happen, just because something doesn't happen oftenly doesn't mean that it shouldn't be made right illegal and a punishment set out for such an action, right? So if I was to say that one 90-year-old grandmother every 20 years was beheaded by someone, right? You wouldn't say that just because it happens so rarely doesn't mean we should make no law or punishment for such a thing, right? That's not so the justification is, right? If your argument against my justification for it is that this doesn't happen often enough to legislate on it, I'd entirely disagree. I think that legislating on it would mean that in these situations, one, it prevents the death penalty from being used to an exorbitant amount when it's not defined on which situations it should be used, right? Because it's very lenient and open to public opinion in the United States right now whether or not the death penalty is sought. In the situation I'm proposing, we very clearly write the legislation to where the death penalty should be used to avoid mishaps like we are having now, right? I don't remember the first question you asked, though, so if you could ask it again, I'd really appreciate it. Oh, was it the cost? Was that the other one?
Yes.
Okay. Sure.
I was not asking you about that. I was just asking you to justify expenditures with suboptimal public safety.
Well, the expenditures.
Public safety, I meant that. So there is this is a very high expenditure associated with death penalty.
So if we change the amount of people that can be executed, that expenditure will go down dramatically, especially with the kind of law I'm describing, correct? Or no? Like the overall cost, not the... So with the kind of legislation I'm saying, right now I'm proposing for where the capital punishment would be used, right, do you think this would decrease the amount of people being executed?
No.
How would it not?
I don't know if it's going to decrease or not. What are you're asking me if a hypothetical legislation is going to decrease? I don't know. It's not me who's proposing it.
So
I guess you would say it will decrease.
I'll demonstrate
but to
how.
be honest, I don't understand how your preemptive So you have mentioned this type of preemptive justice, right? So first of all, it is not legal.
It's not preemptive. I've said this 100 times.
It's preemptive because you're trying to put someone on death row in advance before they commit their crime because you think that there is a high likelihood that this person is going to commit crime again. So this is not only unconstitutional, but it's also this is not only illegal, but it's also unconstitutional because it's an impossible solution that destroys the rights of the individual in the United States according to the U.S. Constitution.
No, one, it's a living document, so even if that was the case, that doesn't matter. But two, it's not the case because when you look at this, right, and you ask if it's preemptive, if this is preemptive, then prisons are preemptive. So if someone commits a crime, right? And then you sentence them, whatever the purpose you're sentencing them for, right? You're sentencing them for that crime. If your justification is they may do it again in the future, that's fine. That doesn't break the Constitution, right? Because otherwise, right? Prisons, right, would be unconstitutional entirely, because the reason we put people there is to prevent them, well, maybe not the justification in the United States, but then if we're talking about Reformation prisons, the reason we put them there is to minimize their harm to society and eventually, hopefully, reform them so they can enter society again when their harm is no longer there, right? So if we're talking about the United States in punishment, right, I disagree with this current system of like retribution punishment, right? So when we're talking about putting this person in prison, I think the justification for why we do it is actually to preemptively stop them from committing more crimes. Do you disagree?
Prison is not preemptive.
It's not preemptively trying to stop people from hurting other people. Like it's putting.
We do not imprison people who are likely to commit.
That's not what I'm saying.
We imprison them for their already committed crime.
So if you arrest someone, try them and find them guilty and then give a punishment, right? Your reasoning for that punishment could be to preemptively stop them from doing that crime again, right? It's not trying to preemptively stop them from doing the crime they already committed, but the reason you put them in jail, right, is to stop them from doing it in the future.
Well, no, you're arresting them for the crime that they've already committed, so I do not think that this is necessarily the case.
That's what I said that.
It's like a result of the process.
So if you describe, right, charging someone for a crime and then executing them, right, because you think they may do it again as preemptive, right, then if we put someone in jail, right, why do we do that? Why don't we just reform them in like a playground?
But I do not think that you can compare the situation to the instance of murdering someone, because in one case, because this person is already imprisoned and this person does not necessarily pose a threat to another individual, while this person, when he, for example, is, so the person should answer for his own deeds, right? So if I'm a person who has committed crime, I should answer for my crimes, because I'm a shitty human being and I harm others. That's the reason we send them to prison. There are two reasons why we send them to prison. Is for them to actually not be free.
So
it's not necessarily just because they stop harming others. Yes. This is for them to stop harming others, but we send them to prison for rehabilitation as well. I think that's how it should be in the first place.
No,
for them to get murdered there.
I don't disagree with you. However, right, when you say a big issue. Oh, okay.
So sentencing is punishment for actions, and the likelihood of reoffending is not considered in courts.
Why isn't it considered? Isn't that kind of important?
No, it's not. It's not considered. It's not considered at all. So when judges look at the crime, they evaluate the current crime, not whether or not this person is gonna commit this crime or not. So let's say we have a rapist on trial and he has raped some girl, and there is a board of psychiatrists that you really like that told us that, oh, this guy is not going to commit this crime again. The judge is still going to evaluate his past actions, not actions that he's going to take in the future. So the likelihood of reoffending is not normally considered.
I don't understand why we put.
It's not considered in the sentencing of the criminal.
So I don't understand.
The possibility of future offense.
I don't understand why.
Is ridiculous.
Okay, I don't understand why then we're putting them in giant boxes with bars on them to prevent them from accessing the outside world. Can you describe the reasoning for that?
Sorry, what?
Why are we putting them in giant structures with bars to prevent them from accessing the outside world, or even other prisoners in certain areas where guards are? What is the purpose of these security measures?
So there are two purposes of this. First of all, is for prisoners to answer for their crimes, and secondly, to keep them away from people. But when the judge is looking at the crime, he's not looking about the likelihood of reoffending in the first place.
So
Does it make sense what I'm saying? So yes.
no,
prison
I
is
don't.
for-
I don't agree that should be so. Like the reason why we put people into prison is to prevent them, like you said, from going out and harming others. So that is a preemptive measure to stop them from going out and harming others, right? I'm not saying the judgment needs to be preemptive before they've committed a crime, but once they've committed a crime, right, considering that they might do it again, I think is very valid and fair, and I think the punishment should be represented because we already do that. We have some people in minimal security because they're perceived as less of a threat, and then max security, right? And then we have some people in solitary for long periods of time because they're even more of a threat, right?
So what I'm suggesting is that when the judge is evaluating the case in the United States, he's not thinking whether or not this person is likely to commit this crime again. He's looking at the severity of the crime committed, the crime that was already
He does
committed.
in sentencing.
It doesn't matter what you think it is fair. What matters is what is actually legal today. You cannot punish for people for future crimes they may commit in 2019. Does it make sense?
No, I don't think it does because when I'm not talking about the judgment, sentencing, right, is the thing we're looking at here. When we look at sentencing, right, they're looking at whether or not the person is a flight risk, whether or not the person is likely to attempt to assault or murder somebody else, right? These are things we look at when we're sentencing someone, and you can demonstrate this very easily by setting bail, right? That is a great example of a preemptive measure we apply to people who are being charged with the crime to prevent them from fleeing and escaping justice, just like we put big walls around people, right? I know bail isn't sentencing, Bama. I'm aware. I'm giving it as an example of a preemptive measure of our justice system to prevent some sort of risk. And I don't know how you could say prisons aren't one of those things. Because it's not saying, oh, you committed this crime, we're going to put you in this box because of how bad your crime was. It's because we think you might do it again.
So, thing is, it's people are facing their trial. That's why they're in prison, not because of the likelihood of them committing this crime again. So yes, obviously, there is a high chance of, in the United States, in the current prison system, of the person getting out from the jail and committing this crime again. There's actually 76% of this chance in the United States today. But when the judge is evaluating, and I'm pretty sure that this guy who's talking right now, his name is Bama, he is a lawyer, and judges do not consider whether or not this person is likely to. You do not
during sentencing.
You're not held accountable for the crimes you haven't yet committed.
Then why are people put into max then?
Because they're dangerous for society, but they're still not judged for the crimes they haven't yet committed.
No, they're judged for the crimes they did commit. So when I talk about whether someone assaulted someone in this facility,
You're telling me the hypothetical situation
please
that this person
let me
is
respond.
going to commit the crime again.
So again, if they did commit the crime, right? I'm not saying we're imagining that they will commit the crime. If they did commit this crime, right, a preemptive measure to ensure they didn't do it again, when we've already made preemptive measures to ensure they didn't do it again, death would be an alternative, right, to making sure that they could never do this again, right, because they wouldn't be alive to do it. So if they have demonstrated that the max security...
That they could be innocent in the first place.
Anyone could be innocent.
Yes, anyone could be innocent, but the people who are not on death row have time to actually prove that they're innocent. Those are two situations. In one situation,
we've gone over this, right?
Yes, but it doesn't make sense to me how you're justifying killing innocent people.
Okay, before we go back to this argument, can we come to the consensus that they are taking action to stop the offender from harming others before they do it, right? After they've been sentenced and convicted for a crime, right, they're doing this to prevent them from hurting further people, which is preemptive. You're preemptively making sure they don't hurt more people, not preemptively making sure that they don't hurt the person they hurt, right, already. Can we agree to this at least before we continue back to the argument we've had before?
No, and you changed your argument from sentencing considering the future to an additional risk assessment made on the prison and their environment. So you have actually changed your argument.
No, wait. Sentencing. You choose whether or not you go to supermax or not, right? Am I wrong? I mean, you might do it in the prison system as well, but...
No, 100%, but you changed your argument.
Wait, I'm wrong?
Your initial argument was... No, listen. Your initial argument was different. We're proposing... So, let's go back to your original argument. You just changed your argument completely.
Sure, yeah.
So, initially,
Let's hear it.
you were proposing that we should enjail people... Yes, sorry. We should put people on death row in a hypothetical situation if they attack a janitor or another prisoner, because group of scientists or psychiatrists have determined that there is a likelihood of this person committing the crime again, right?
Okay.
Because that was the argument that you
And
initially
I'd
made.
assume there'd also be sentencing for that crime that they committed in prison. Aren't people tried for crimes they commit in prison, or am I wrong? Like, you'd still have a trial.
Tried for the crimes they have committed in prison, 100%, and they
Yeah.
should be tried for crimes they have committed in prison.
I agree.
But so basically, in your hypothetical situation that you're proposing right now, we're not judging person for the we are imagining a hypothetical situation that this person is going to commit this crime again because a group of psychiatrists told us that there is a 99% of chance that this person is going to commit the crime, which I think that is never 99%.
I wouldn't even need that, right? I've already said I don't abide only by that.
Okay, so now you're taking your argument.
No,
back
to be clear, I was trying to get you to agree with the hypothetical to show you didn't have the principle. And then I'm proposing, right, this is an actual thing. I know it's not 99%, and my argument to it not being 99% is that no kind of conviction or sentencing is based on 100% facts, right? It's not going to be.
Yeah. But death is more serious than imprisonment because this way you're literally dead, and in the other case you can get released at least after 30 years.
But people will die in prison who are innocent. We've seen this, right? So the result would be the same, right? They're both going to die if they're innocent.
What your argument is that basically we should just murder people because there is a chance that they could have been innocent, so we just murder them instead?
You know that's a straw man. Come on. I wasn't saying that we shouldn't. I'm not saying we should murder them because there's a chance they're innocent. It's just that you can't operate as though people who you convict through your legal system, right, are innocent. To operate as such would not allow for the legal system to operate.
I mean, my proposition here is that we should imprison them for a time and wait. Whether or not there's going to be more evidence found, whether or not they were guilty. Suggesting that there are some kind of group of psychiatrists who might have examined them is wrong because there is no certainty in the situation. Again, back to your argument of the hypothetical situation of attacking janitor, I think there are two problems with this hypothetical situation is that, first of all, this person could be imprisoned wrongfully. And the second argument is that the janitor could be the one provoking this, and we do not necessarily have 100% of information about janitor not provoking it, and plus deterring him from committing future crimes is not necessarily is violating human rights because the person has not yet committed another crime. You cannot necessarily.
They did commit another crime. They killed someone or assaulted them in prison.
But you're telling me that there is a high chance of the person committed it again, but he hasn't committed it yet.
So if they've shown a violation of the system,
he's not on the free, he's not running and killing children, right? He's still in prison.
But inmates have just as much as rights as those children when it comes to protecting their life. So when I talk about this, right, and I say that we should take action in this instance, right, just like when we determine we should put people in cages, right, for the reason of it reduces the harm to others, right, executing them in this instance because they're already in this cage, right, most of them, these people that we're talking about are going to be supermax prisoners, right, based on the crimes we're talking about. So if they're already in these cages, right, and they commit an offense, I'm saying we should execute them because just like when we use prisons, right?
Yeah.
To stop people from going out and hurting others, right? If the prison didn't work and they're still going to do it, right? Or they have done it, the next step I think should be taken is execution. Now, I'm going to say, if you're going to say, well, they could be innocent, that's not an argument against convicting someone and trying them for something, right?
So, I think that you're wrong. So I think that it's very important to actually consider that death penalty does not actually lower murder rates. You're talking about it as if it does it does lower murder.
No, I never said that. That's not true.
You're talking about it as if it does murder rates. You're telling me like, oh, there are going to be less people committing crimes, but
it might not be a deterrent, but most of the evidence suggests it is. But then there's people who have issues with those evidence. But the opposite hasn't been stipulated from most of the studies I've read. So unless you have a study that stipulates that it's the opposite of a deterrent, or it's certain that it is not a deterrent, right? Then that question is really up in the air for either of us, so it's not worth getting into. I think you'd agree, right? Because even like the anti-death penalty website that everyone goes to, right? What is it, like deathpenaltyfacts.org or whatever, has only claimed that people disagree with the methodology of the studies that were taken to say the death penalty is a deterrent. And the committee that looked over these journals, these peer-reviewed journals, said that the evidence could only be inconclusive.
Okay, so basically, a majority of America's criminologists argue that capital punishment does not actually contribute to lower rates of homicide.
They argue that, but they don't provide evidence for it.
So, the consensus is actually international in its scope. So, in recent years, the United Kingdom, as I remember in like around 1973, Canada also around the same time, France in 80s, Australia also in 80s, Italy and Spain I think after Franco, and Italy also like around the end of 20th century, have eliminated capital punishment for murder after very, very extensive study and debate.
Mm-hmm.
And this trend has not actually been observed to cause increase in homicide. So, let me go back to this country.
So
you know, can I finish?
Sure.
1 second. Okay. So, there were a lot of debates in those countries as well, including Canada, UK, Australia, whether or not capital punishment is just, or whether or not it actually increases rates in homicide. So they basically decided to implement it and see if something is going to happen. There has not been observed to cause any type of increased homicide.
These are trends.
Canada, for example, in the second half of 20th century, in the 1990s, around that time, homicide rate was about like 25% below the rate at the time of abolition. And I don't know, like, United Nations has actually summarized this in their study, UN. And they have argued that it is United Nations. This is not some...
I understand. I know what it is.
Book, right? It's the UN, and they've used a lot of statistics, data, criminologists, and they have issued a statement suggesting that it is generally agreed that the data, which now exists, actually shows that there is no correlation between the existence of capital punishment and lower rates of capital crime. And there was a later study done at Dartmouth, which actually has re-examined this claim, and they also have found that there is no correlation between this. And basically, I'm just looking at their study, and their study starting from the hypothesis, and they're doing their own study about it, and they're using different types of methods. I can talk about them, what methods they use. And basically, they also conclude that.
Like you're making a lot of
there is
points
no-
at once, right? So this is
Okay.
getting
so
to the point
what
where it's
I'm-
almost a gish
the
gallop.
major point, what I'm suggesting here, is that capital punishment does not actually lower murder rates. If it did lower murder rates, then you could make maybe arguments, like if it's going to deter. But it's not even true in the first place.
Again,
so,
it's
yeah.
from the studies, right, that I've seen. The UN may claim otherwise, right, but they're not conducting in a comparative analysis on these different nations and making this claim. They're just observing trends, right, and then saying that it seems to be the case, right, that it doesn't prevent the murder rates from going up, right, or down, whatever you want to say. So when we look at this, right, and we look at the actual studies on this and the statements that people who critique these studies have made, right, they found no evidence to say, right, from like peer-reviewed journals and comparative analyses that capital punish does or does not deter crime. When you say the UN makes this statement, you have to realize this is a political organization, right, that has a lot of different entities, right, in it that have interest in stopping such a thing from occurring. And they're not claiming this to be absolute fact. They're saying they've seen this trend with Western democracies. And if you're in the field of comparative, right, and if you had a comparative analysis for me that showed that Western democracies, right, had this common trend, and you determined and took out all the environmental factors and internal factors that could be skewing these results to make us conclude that that the death penalty, right, not being there is the thing that isn't responsible for this, right? So if it was like economic factors that was there could be economic factors responsible for this. It could be, yeah, because you're a political scientist, you understand, right? So when I say, when I say this, right, if we look at like, I could be really disingenuous. I'm not going to do it, but and go like point to like a lot of nations south of the equator, right, that have a variety of different issues with not having capital punishment. Because as you know, few nations have capital punishment. But that would be really disingenuous because we're not doing an actual comparative analysis, most similar, most different, right? And there could be a variety of environmental factors due to us not doing these methods to establish these trends correctly.
Okay, so let's talk about comparative politics.
Yeah.
So actually comparison of countries like the United Kingdom, especially Canada. So generally when we talk about comparative politics, and I like that you touched upon it, try to compare countries that have the most similar system design. Canada and the United States are extremely similar. And we do not need their economic growth to be exactly the same and all of the factors to be the same. We only need 3 factors to be similar in these countries. And so we can actually make a comparative analysis between Canada and the United States. If we were now talking about, there's like Singapore, or comparing it to countries that are authoritarian in their natures and are culturally completely different, yes, then we would not be able to make a comparison. But when we're talking about countries
that's not true.
Like Canada and Australia and Great Britain, well, depending what we're talking about, if we're talking about capital punishment, then no. But if we're talking about like Great Britain, Canada, and Australia, then those countries are comparable. You can argue that France, Italy, and Spain are less comparable than Great Britain, Canada, and Australia to the United States. But those 3 countries are especially comparable.
You're making the mistake.
The United States. Yeah.
You're making the mistake of you're ignoring the most different comparative analysis. You can do most different or most similar, where most different is, so you can compare these countries, but the comparative analysis haven't been done. But you can also do most different. Both are as valid in comparative politics. So this would be something you should do, and I don't think you have a study or a comparative analysis that shows this, right?
So basically, no. So there are so in comparative politics, we can compare countries in 2 cases. The first case is the most similar system design, as correctly noted. So we have 3 countries, let's say, and they have a similar system design, and they have a different outcomes. Like all of them have different outcomes. Then we are trying to understand the variables that have been different between them. And death penalty could be one of them. In this way, we're going to find either causation or correlation with these variables. In the most different system design, we're going to have 3 countries that have the same outcome but are different in their design. So in this case, I'm talking about the most similar system design, not
Yeah.
the most different.
You can do most different too, and it can be just as conclusive.
100%. Yeah, of course you can do the most
I'm aware.
similar
So,
system, of course.
do you have this analysis on most similar? Because
Yeah, of course.
you have to. Okay, can you show it to me?
This Dartmouth study is talking about other countries as well. So
Is it done with Mills method or no?
give me a question. Give me a second.
Because otherwise, it's just verifying things about their own country, right?
Yeah, they're actually doing comparative analysis within the United States, I think, as well. So I'm gonna just quickly link it to you.
Sure.
But I can find hundreds of other studies that are done in comparative politics.
So is it? This is comparative then, this Dartmouth one, or no?
This one is.
Do you guys mind if I just step in briefly here?
Sure.
So I'm just like concerned because this has been going on for 3 hours, and I'm sure you guys are tired. So like, if you want, we can end the debate now, or we can continue it for like another like 15 minutes or something. But like, I just want to see where you both are at because you're probably exhausted.
It's up to you, Aya. I'm trying to be a trooper. I'm tired, but I'll keep going for sure.
I mean, I'm also tired, but if you want, I can go on.
Okay. Then let's continue.
Okay. So yeah. Is this comparative or no?
Can I get some coffee and I'll come back in 1 second because I'm falling asleep.
I mean, we should. I don't want to take you on past your allotted time, right? I don't want to be
No,
that.
it's fine. I'm gonna come back. I just need coffee, okay?
Okay, sure. Oh my. I am pretty tired, boys. I don't know. Oh no, have I convinced a libertarian that the death penalty is a good thing? Oh no. I'm scared now. I guess that's too broad of a statement, right? I've been very specific with my arguments. Why am I not a tribune? Ask Eris. Even if you think I'm wrong, guys, I appreciate if you guys have been respectful, right? And if you disagree with Aya, please be respectful to her. I saw someone calling names or something in the chat. It's not very cool. Yeah. I agree. Sig naturally should come and be more active so you get prefect, right? And then eventually become a tribune. Right? He's just got to be more active, right? Like, this is what I'm saying. Can we have a debate on whether or not Sig natural should be more active and then convince him? I think that would be good.
So, when am I becoming magister?
That's a funny one. Did you guys like that comedy? I liked it. No, I don't want to be a server owner. I don't want to have that kind of responsibility on me. If I got paid for it, sure, but I'm sure you wouldn't like if I got paid for running a server.
No amount of money.
I'd take $100K a year for running a server. I'd do that. That's my price, boys. Give me $100K. I'll take over.
100K American or Canadian?
American. Why would we go with inferior dollars?
Well, I was just trying to get a better deal.
I don't run a server, Tom. I have a personal server, like 40 people in it, who is like... When was the last post before I announced this debate? Oh, it was actually last Tuesday, but that's just because Jakob is weirdly dedicated to posting in there. He's like talking to himself in there. It's really disturbing. I should probably go to the bathroom. I'll be right back.
Someone want to make a second? I don't know. It's like mid debate. It's like third quarter debate poll. Someone want to do that? The potato guy. He made it the last.
Are you even allowed to sell like Discord servers? Because I know you get banned for selling a subreddit.
I think so. pretty sure.
Why can you get banned for selling subreddit? Do you remember like
Reddit
when that
is
thing
stupid.
happened with Dust?
Reddit has a lot of weird rules.
I think it has
Thank
something
you,
to
Mr.
do with.
Chair.
I think it has something to do with that. It's technically not yours.
Well, when you own like a subreddit, are you not considered like the subreddit owner or just like the head mod? You don't even know what it's called.
No, but like you're not really the owner of the subreddit, right? That's Reddit.
Yeah, but say it's like, but it's the same case with Discord, right? Like technically, Discord owns all of this, but they still call me an owner.
I guess it's like you're an owner. How do I explain this? Have you played RuneScape? Okay, but basically selling accounts there is also like a big no-no because technically you don't own the account. It's not
Yeah, but I mean, you can sell your Instagram account, and people are telling me you can sell your Discord server. So you can't sell a subreddit. So I just don't see the difference between like a subreddit and a Discord server.
Wait, you can sell Discord servers?
Apparently.
I is back. Dirty just ran off to use the restroom.
I'm here now. I'm holding a cat again. A different cat.
Hey.
Hi.
Sorry. So actually, I'm pretty sure that even if I Google this comparative studies, I can find a lot of comparative studies. So let's see.
Sure.
Just I'll mute the mic while I'm typing.
Okay. So if you haven't yet, you should come see my cat, right? Because she's really cute and she's really nice. She's really friendly.
I have a dog. So.
I have a dog too. I still have a husky. I had a Cavapoo and now I have a husky and a German Shepherd mixed with a Black Lab.
Oh, that's good.
And I have a lot of ducks.
I have a dog that's supposed to be like small, but he grew up, so I call him Cow.
Cow. See a bull?
He's like furball. He's fat and angry.
Hold on. So I have a whole army of ducks, right, that could fight off her dog, Doobie. I don't know what you're talking about.
Pretty sure it goes against the Discord TOS to have it.
Animal fights.
Like between the animals.
And probably
I
Twitch.
don't know. My dog fights me every single day, so I don't know. He's violating my personal. Just a second.
I may be slowing down here for sure. Drank a 2-liter Mountain Dew. Wonderful.
Just give me a second. I looked it up on the phone when I was drinking coffee. This is from Harvard. Thing is, they talk about their conclusions of the studies, but because I'm not at university anymore, I cannot have access to the whole article. But even if I had access to the whole article, I'm still not allowed to show it on my stream or to like leak the whole article. So you cannot really see like the method they used, but generally in comparative studies they use Mills.
Well, depending on the institution, I might be able to get into it since I'm in university.
So I don't have access generally to those articles legally, and I'm not gonna say if I have access to them illegally.
If either way,
I know there's so many studies that you can like from GSOR. Oh, this one you can reach online.
If you'd like, we have a citation archive. You could post it all there. I don't know if I don't want to take up any more time of the higher ups here or anyone else. I think it'd be fine if we came to the end now, said final statements, if you'd like. Would you be okay with that or no?
Oh, posting it in you mean like Discord channel?
Yeah, we start citation archive.
Okay, yeah, sure. Just not to disturb people talking.
Yeah, you could post your information there.
Okay, so
I don't know.
This is This is one.
Yeah. I'm not running away, dude. I'm just trying to keep it to a conclusion at some point. We can keep going if she wants to. I'm just really tired.
What is a dog server?
Okay, citation archive. There we go. Radcliffe. Just question.
There is the one I found within the United States, and there is another one I found global. I mean, this kind of global are done, but I think that generally, like, quantitative analysis is not as detailed and as good as qualitative analysis.
It's getting there, though. Hopefully, yeah, I understand.
Well, I guess mixed method approach is the best. But I mean, yes, generally I would agree with the fact. So, someone didn't want to interrupt the debate.
So this is a seminar. Oh, this is a seminar workshop.
Is it? No, I don't think so.
That's.
Oh, that's a seminar workshop. Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
I linked the wrong thing.
It's all right.
I linked the wrong thing. Give me a second. I had it on my phone. I don't know.
It sounds interesting. I'd love to attend, but I don't go to Harvard, so.
I mean, I'm pretty sure you can attend it without actually going to Harvard.
I'm not by Harvard either. I could fly if I have a free weekend. That'd be cool.
Boston is shitty, so not worth it.
Ooh, that's very debated. It's in America, so I don't know if it could be shitty, right? Like.
Oh wow!
I'm just, no, oh wow. Okay.
I'm sorry to everyone who is from Boston, but Boston sucks.
It's because the Irish people are there.
No, it's because they're Puritans and.
Oh.
Oh my god! I lost the study. Give me a second. Just 1 second.
It's fine. If you want to end it any time, let me know. I'm ready. Running out of gas.
You wanted to end, no?
I'm a little tired, I'll admit, and my cafeteria closes in 2 hours, so I'd like to go.
I mean, we can end it if you want.
Yeah, I'd like to see your comparative analysis, to be fair, right? Because I challenged you on it before we do, so that everyone can see it. I don't think I'll challenge it regardless, so that we can end and we can say final statements and shout-outs or whatever. I ditched the cat? I didn't ditch the cat. She's over here. Oh, she's licking some. I can't say what she's doing. It's against Discord TOS and a variety of other laws, right, to describe.
Okay. So it's comparing. It's exactly using most similar system design.
Okay.
It's actually using Netherlands, Germany, US. I haven't read this study though, so just give me some.
Sure. I can go over it with you if you want, or you could just keep it until you.
Alright, so just basically the study is comparing prison systems overall, including death penalty, not just death penalty. But it's conducting a comparative analysis of the whole prison system. So between Germany, Netherlands, and the United States. But to be honest, I think that it's fair because when we talk about this type of studies, it's really hard to actually take the whole prison system away from
I agree.
Penalty, right? So because you cannot just simply say, oh, there is no death penalty anymore. You have to change the whole prison system. So we have to compare, I guess, whole prison system.
Yeah, it would be
necessarily only comparing death penalty. And generally, when we talk about death penalties, I think yes, you made this argument that there is simply correlation, and they could be economic factors, and that's 100% true. You could argue 100% that there is no causation in this instance, and there is just correlation, but correlation is at least evidence good enough to try.
It's saying something, yeah, and I agree that prisons are like horribly mismanaged, and that the justice system could improve a lot. I don't want to challenge what you're saying because I'm tired, and I'd like to go eat if I could. And
Okay.
I promise you I wouldn't challenge it, so I don't want to challenge it and then
Have dry cornflakes to eat. So
dry. Wait, hold on. You don't drink it with milk, or eat it with milk?
no.
Oh my god. I don't know how I can go on. Okay. Oh no. It's a good brand, but you just can't be doing that. Okay. Well, it was a pleasure. I had a lot of fun at the very least. I hope I may have demonstrated a good argument and maybe convinced some people. I thank everyone for being respectful to Aya. And Aya, if you'd like to, yeah.
Thank you so much for coming and debating me. It was a lot of fun.
Cool.
I mean, 3 hours flew really fast. I didn't even notice.
Yeah, it was great. If you have anything you'd like to say to the server, or
Guys, thank you so much for hosting this debate, and thanks for being respectful, I guess. I haven't been reading the chat. They could probably be like, murder this bitch, I fucking hate her, lynch her. So I don't know if this was the case, but I was not really looking at the chat. But regardless, thanks for hosting it, and thanks for Doobie, for finding you. Because I asked him, I was like, Doobie, do you know anyone who can argue with me? And he was like, yeah, I know, like, there's this guy, and he's really smart. So thanks to Doobie for this. And I don't know, like, sorry, let me just copy and paste this Discord link to my stream, just in case.
And thank you so much for coming. You know, it's great to see like a woman holding her own and debating. Like a lot of the girls here, we have tons of girls here, but a lot of them feel nervous to include themselves in debates. So I think it's definitely good for us to see that.
I mean, thank you so much for this. I don't know, like, generally, like, people try to avoid debates online because people do not really like getting into, not necessarily fights, but disagreements with each other on the internet, because we come here to kind of relax, and a lot of the times people tell me, oh, Aya, why are you debating today? I didn't really want to talk about death penalty. I wanted to, like, watch funny YouTube videos. So it makes sense that a lot of people feel like they don't want to debate, especially girls who are often mistreated by males on Discord. So this makes sense.
Yeah.
Can you please post a link to your Discord and debate? Oh, no, sorry. I think Doobie linked it to me, so don't worry. I'm just gonna plug it in.
If you guys are listening, Aya's Twitch channel is both in Club News and it's pinned to the debate discussion chat. So if you guys just subscribe to her and follow her there, that'd be amazing. We really, really appreciate her coming on.
Thanks. I really appreciate for hosting this debate, and take care, guys. Bye.
Talk to you later.
Cool. Oh no, I forgot. Hold on, I gotta say something to you all real quick, okay?
Okay.
I'm sorry, Suli. I made a mistake. Wait, where are my DMs with Suli? Can't even find them. I've gotten so many DMs. Okay, I have to say this. Diggity do, capital punishment is right for you. There we go. Suleiman, I did include it. I just forgot. I'm sorry. Apologize. Oh boy.
That was terrible. Please never do that again.
I hope no one wants to put me to death after this. I'd be really sad. I like you all.
So what I'm going to do now is unmute everybody, and we're gonna have a little round table on death penalty. Okay. 1 second. Actually, why don't we do this? If you want to be unmuted, just let me know in chat, and I'll meet you. I don't have to go through the whole list.
It might be easier to just unmute people because it was last time a lot of people were like nervous to say they wanted to be unmuted.
Okay, let's start.
Oh, sweet, I'm unmuted. I was doing shots each time someone said hypothetically, and I'm a little bit shit-faced now.
Hearing a lot of that, I
Okay,
came
guys.
in about an hour after.
I'm going to jump off stream. I appreciate y'all for watching. I'm really tired. I'm going to get on my phone and go eat. I'm going to be listening to the roundtable they're going to have. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to stream it. If you've been watching, I suggest you go to Collopian Club. The link is available on my Twitch. And if you are from Aya's stream or if you are from Collopian Club, I'd appreciate you guys following or subscribing to the YouTube, whichever. I really thank y'all for being here. It was really kind of you to stay here and participate. And I want to give props to Aya. Go follow her. She's really nice and really respectful so far. I disagree with her a lot on the death penalty, but otherwise, she seems like a really nice person, and I'm sure we agree on a lot of other things. So you should go follow her. Otherwise, we'll see you later. It's been good, and we'll be streaming again sometime soon. Hopefully with something political, although I can't promise it, as I am obviously more of a gaming streamer. I want to get D&D back, but we'll see. Have a good one.